welcome. Thank God it's Friday because we have not just one show for you, but two shows. You guys you chose wisely. We're fan casting Jessica Cruz for Fancast Friday, so I'm going to give each and every one of you who voted for that a cookie. Congratulations, you picked the best and most goated options. But outside of that, welcome to DCU Daily. We're going to be getting to that soon, but still, we are going to be talking about all sorts of things today. A little bit sadder DCU Daily, since pretty much there is no good news in regards to Supergirl. It seems like audiences don't like it, critics don't like it, and it is torpedoing at the box office because the projections keep going down. The previews didn't really get a lot of money, so we will have to unfortunately trudge through that sad news at the beginning of the show with box office report. And then, of course, we are going to be talking about MCU Weekly. We have a little bit of MCU Weekly, mainly in regards to some more, the BTS pictures. Apparently, someone from Iron Fist might make their glorious return. We'll just have to wait and see for that, but we are talking about that. We're talking about a possible, very big shaped hole for Secret Wars that a favorite blockbuster star might be filling, but again, we will have to wait and see about that one. And then we have our quick hits after, of course, a little bit more Spider-Man talk, and then finally Summer of Supergirl. Even though it's kind of sad, we here at Oh So Curious still enjoyed the movie despite its many flaws and reservations, but that's okay. We're still going to be talking about it. We're still going to be celebrating it. We're celebrating Millie Alcock's inability to give a flying fuck about the haters. So, obviously, all of that and more right after this wonderful intro telling us that we are indeed Knuff.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always the number two.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh boy, here we are talking about the news. But before we get into the news, we have a couple people in the chat already. Monique telling us about how she has wonderful chicken tenders, baked beans, and pitted Bing cherry. I didn't think that cherries would be part of dinner, but sure, that works. And then Enterprising. Hello. I'm glad you watched it. Let us know what you thought of it, if you liked it, if you hated it, if for the most part something in between. But of course, here we are with Dan as well, just in time here to talk about, of course, the box office, because we got to get into depressing news right off the bat. Is Supergirl not exactly doing great, but we got to talk about it. We got to keep our biases aside, talk about it, because it seems as though Supergirl only made a measly 7.8 million at the box office in previews. Even other smaller films made bigger than that, which is kind of suckish, but
Yes, Andrew. Nelson.
Thoughts on this? Does this make you sad, make you worried, make you happy, make you pissed? I don't know. All the emotions, none of the emotions, or you just like, Yeah, let's just get this shit over with and move on to a brand new day, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, it's not. It's 7.8 million isn't like nothing, but it's also not a lot. Like 7.8 million puts us back a bit, I believe, because you're looking at that number is kind of in the Flash territory. I think it's if I remember correctly. So basically 7.8 million. It goes a little higher if you include like the fan screenings. I think I was looking somewhere else. It was like it's kind of 8 million basically. So if you want to do a bit of a roundup altogether, and it's expected to add another 5 million internationally, which gives it a 13 million opening day. Basically, that includes previews. Friday, that 13 million opening day worldwide is just a little higher than Disclosure Day, which did 12 million on its opening day. So they're hoping that on the high end it could still do 80 million worldwide, but like domestically, it's still looking, like it might come in below the actually what they were expecting all around. With like it might not even get to 40 to 50, which we'll get to. But I wanted to kind of quickly point out, John, like even if it's like around 8 million, it's closer to the Marvel's territory, which opened to 6.6 million on opening day, and obviously that was a flop for Marvel. Then Captain America: Brave New World actually made 12 million. So and that's just domestic. So like just the 8 million versus Captain America: Brave New World did better.
Hey,
Morbius did 5.7. So it's like,
well, here's the thing.
yeah.
Sometimes you just with what the data is essentially, it's just like you just have outliers where it's
Yeah.
like my theater was full. Liz, Dan, Liz was saying her theater was pretty full. Dan, I think your theater was pretty full. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, for every like really full theater, there's probably 10 to 15 near or fully empty ones. I know fucking someone got on my back. It's like, oh, just because your theater was full doesn't mean. I'm like, yeah, I fucking know, man. It just, it's not like gonna be totally empty everywhere, obviously, but that's just how it is. It's just like I assume like in East Bumfuck Nowhere, nobody's going to see Supergirl right now. I mean, sure, there's probably going to be bigger stuff in like the bigger, more populated territories, but like in the East Beatnik fucking Midwest, nobody cares about this shit. They whatever. That's not going to make money there, and with that, it sucks, and it seems like they made all the wrong choices when it came to this movie, which is a shame because I liked it. I thought it was well done. I'm sure if it was, more of an adaptation of the original comic, I'm sure everybody else would have loved it and I would have fucking hated it. So, it's just like, I'll take that deal. Damn good deal. I like it, you hate it. That's fine. I'll take it.
Wait, what do you mean by all the wrong decisions though? Like, do you care to?
Because it's just like, because like the whole thing was clearly James Gunn got the wrong director, the wrong writer, not adapting the comic properly like people wanted, even though it's
we'll talk about that.
Fucking hack.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna be getting into some later stuff in regards to the blame James Gunn hate train that apparently comic book movie is going towards. But I think
well, there's a lot of interviews that are being released now that are timed to the release of the movie, which like some of them were done as far back as April, which we'll talk about. And obviously they're talking now about details about how they made the movie and the decisions that went into the script, which obviously they held back. The studio mandated that information doesn't come out till after the movie comes out. Anyway, we'll get to that later. But yeah, I mean, to Enterprise's point, even like he thought it was uneven and a little disorganized. I guess I really want to. I've been thinking about it all day. I kind of want to go back and see Supergirl again because I feel like on a second watch I might be a bit kinder because it's like sitting with it. It's. I don't want to make a one-for-one comparison, but like sitting with the movie, having seen it a couple of days ago now, I'm getting similar feelings about like how like it's kind of like you get a slightly bad aftertaste in your mouth, like when I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, which in the moment seemed like a fun movie. Some shit made no sense whatsoever. It was uneven. I was like, okay, fine, they're just clearly don't care. And the CGI, there were some like glaring problems there. But I think like 2-3 days after seeing Thor: Love and Thunder, I was like, oh my god, what the hell was that? And I'm not saying this is as bad. It's just there's a lot in this movie where I was like, they were close, but not quite there. And then when we talk about it later, John, with especially, I think especially what Craig Gillespie said in one of those interviews, I really want to get into that because I feel like that more than anything might be like a problem. But yeah, we will dissect it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna try to go see it again over the week. Maybe tomorrow I'll see if I can go see it. That's the one advantage that it doesn't. It's not a long movie. So if you want to just go and spend a couple hours in the movie theater and watch it back, and it's not a movie that like drags. Like I've kept on saying, this movie probably should have been about as long as Superman, which is like 2 hours 10 minutes, and this is like an hour 50. Like that extra 15 minutes of runtime, you take away like another like 5 or 10 minutes for credits, so you're really adding another like 10-15 minutes of runtime. That would have given it, I think, what it needed. But then I think what Craig Gillespie said, which we'll discuss later, sort of gives it a different color in terms of like maybe fundamentally the approach was slightly flawed, and maybe like fans weren't wrong to expect something that was closer to Woman of Tomorrow.
It's just,
anyway.
it's just the thing that annoys me about like it's not exactly like the comic. No,
well, I don't need it to be that, but
no. I'm
yeah,
just saying, like, in terms of general, because there's this one person I know who's like loves the comic,
good question.
despite the fact that they hate Tom King in every other aspect, but whatever. And she was just so mad that it was nothing like the comic, but at the same time, she did have like proper critiques of it, not just like, oh, it's nothing like the comic. But I have seen other people that are like, oh, it's nothing like the comic. First off, literally no comic book movie ever in the history of fucking cinema has ever been a one-to-one adaptation of the comic. Even animated movies, which usually stay pretty close because they have that, they have that luxury because nobody really cares about the animated side of things, mainly with DC. Marvel doesn't really get into the animated stuff outside of like shows, but like DC, even like like Batman Hush, and like they changed it. Oh, they wanted to one up the audience by like Thomas Elliot wasn't the fucking Hush, it was Riddler for some fucking stupid reason. And with that, like, you're never going to get one-to-one adaptation. And then second big reason, shit changes. Like a rough draft to final cut released in theaters are two different movies. Like, and that rough cut goes through like 17 different iterations before it gets to the final cut, because you have a rough draft, then you have multiple drafts, then you have the shooting script, then you are making the movie, and on top of the fact, when you're making that movie, then it's in post-production. Then it becomes an entirely different movie when you're editing it. And then it becomes a different movie when you feed it to test screenings, and you have to make further edits because this person liked it, but this person didn't. How do we make this work and try to please as many people as we can? Okay, then it becomes an entirely separate movie. And then when it finally reaches the final cut, it is not even close to what that original screenplay is. One, because you have so much more influence. You have producer influence, you have director influence, the writing changes, maybe another writer comes on. It's like, if the initial idea was James Gunn, oh hey, I want to adapt this comic I really like, but then they realize, oh shit, this is not gonna work for a movie, and it would have probably shit the bed. Now, maybe it would have been better, but it's also entirely possible it could have been even worse, because usually, more often than not, because maybe there was the idea of like, oh, we want to play it more safe because this is an early DCU movie, and then there's a lot of stuff in the comic that can't work in this continuity, like for instance, just a random thing, the Kryptonite Sun thing. That in the comic, it was specifically made as a prison for Superman, and the Brigands and Krem knew that. That's why they lured Supergirl and Ruthie to that Earth so that it would kill her. But in this world, you can't do that. This is a Superman that's technically only 3 years old right now in terms of his run. So it's like you can't have that huge cosmic like idea of Superman who's barely made it off Earth. And so things have to change, and they clearly wanted to make it a little bit darker, a little bit grungier, make Krem like more so deserve it rather than, oh, he's just a guy. So I can understand um all of this going on, and just like it's just so silly to me that it's like, oh, I expected a one to one, note for note adaptation of this comic I liked. You were never going to get that, even early on when James Gunn kind of promised that. It's just the case of James Gunn needing to shut the fuck up, because he's just talking way too much, and he's contradicting himself, and he's saying all this shit, and it's either doesn't amount to anything, he looks like a hypocrite, or he's contradicting himself. It's like, dude, we really appreciate that you're trying to like be with the fans and all that, and like be like in it with them, because like be having that close relationship, so like people like kind of trust you more and all that. I appreciate that, but there are times when you need to put the phone down. You need to get away from the computer, because now you're saying all this stuff, you're doing all this shit, and you're contradicting yourself, and more people are getting angry and getting upset with this like
Well,
new DCU that you have, and you're gonna end up like just shutting people off from this thing entirely. I know people that watched, like, after watching Peacemaker season 2, they're like, I'm done. Nope. Like, I watched Creature Manos, didn't like it, Superman didn't like it, season 2 didn't like it, so I'm done. I'm out. Bye-bye. And it's just like, yeah, you're gonna have more and more people that are because even though you could make the argument, and I've made this
yeah, I agree with
argument because I
Enterprise, and
still
I thought that was
see it
awesome.
and agree with it. So with
far, yes.
that it is kind of like the early MCU. You have Iron Man, which was beloved, and then you had like Incredible Hulk, which was not so beloved, which Supergirl could take the place of. But this is also a different world. This is 2026, not 2008. Social media is heavier. It's a different world. The MCU is now almost 20 years a thing. So
hmm
sometimes like it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world, and you do have to constantly evolve, constantly adjust. But it's just like and it's on top of that, we've been through this song and dance before. We have had a DCEU that shit the bed after like 3 movies. So I know James Gunn is really trying hard not to do that again, but you're kind of going down that point with it. Not everybody. Not me. I'm in it for the long run. Like, I got my shirt right here. So like, I'm in it through thick, thin, and the good, the bad, and the fucking horrific. So, you know what? I'm here for it, but not many people have my patience in regards to this. Not many people have my, I don't know, fanboyism of like, yes, I shall do watch anything. I'm gonna watch Lanterns, even though I'm probably gonna fucking hate it. I'm gonna watch that
Yeah.
shit too.
Well,
So
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like it's
I
a
think I
whole
agree.
thing, and I
Yeah.
feel like James Gunn is trying way too hard, and it's just coming off as bad execution in terms of this whole thing. To a lot of people, I don't think it's that bad, but to a lot of other people, yeah, it's not good.
Well, okay. So, I actually, you made some good points. I don't know, to the points about James Gunn. I don't think James. It's very subjective in terms of what was promised versus what was delivered, because like for James Gunn, clearly this was the movie that they like, he signed off on it, that this is gonna get put out there. So maybe in his mind this was great and it should have worked. And like I've been talking about it the last couple of days. I just, and even before that, I think Supergirl, its success or failure is in large part dictated by its release, date, and the fact that I feel like this was too early to take a risk with a character. And look, nothing. Okay, this movie could have been objectively better in terms of the story structure and some of the shortcomings a lot of people have mentioned, including us and you guys in the chat as well. And it's one of those things where if enough people are talking about the same things, that might be a problem in the movie. And if we are talking about it, I bet you that the folks at DC Studios probably realize some of that as well by now. But I just think some of the shortcomings of this movie are going to come down to not the movie itself. It's stuff that was outside of the movie, even like the release schedule, where it comes out in the context of the DCU, where it comes out in context of like the movie calendar, all those things as well. And kind of like the Marvels in even, right? The Marvels, I think the biggest problem with the Marvels was not that it was a terrible movie. It was a fine movie. It was an enjoyable film. I still don't I think it's far from the worst that Marvel has done, and I thought it was genuinely fun to watch for the most part. The biggest thing that caused it to flop was the fact that they had 2 out of 3 lead characters who were from Disney Plus shows that a significantly smaller chunk of the audience that watch Marvel stuff knew about or saw or remembered by the point that came out. Like Photon hadn't been in a thing for like 3 years at that point, because WandaVision was literally the first Disney Plus show, and then she wasn't in anything else until they reintroduced her in the movie. And then Miss Marvel, despite being probably one of the best shows out, as well as WandaVision, Miss Marvel was one of the least viewed shows on Disney Plus, unfortunately. So, and then like the first Captain Marvel movie, we talk about, yes, it was a good movie. It deserved some of its box office success, but there was a big chunk of that money came from the pure hype behind its relevance to Avengers Endgame, which ultimately proved to be very loose. But I'm not saying it probably would have made money, but not $1 billion without that connection. So it just, again, it's not the movie itself. I think there's other aspects with Supergirl that I've been mentioning. I do want to address some of the questions that were in the chat. So Nelson was asking, do A-list movies for AMC members affect ticket sales? Yes, they do in terms of how they count them. So there's a default value. I think it's like whatever. I think it's like the average ticket price in the US or something. They have a calculation over at AMC, much like every other theater that has a rewards program where you use their
Regal,
rewards points.
Cinemark, all that stuff.
So they have a certain specific amount they allot per booking. So if you have A-list and you're paying, I don't know, depending on which version you have, $25, $30 a month, or it might even be more than that, the highest tier now. You book a ticket to go see one, like Supergirl. You book, let's say, one ticket that has a default value that's assigned to it. That's the money that AMC will pay the movie studio, regardless of whether it's an A-list screening, or otherwise. Now, if you pay for like the IMAX ticket, you pay $21, then the percentage of that is going to count. But then there's a default value. So AMC basically, the whole idea behind the A-list is predicated on they're counting on most people not actually taking advantage of these allotted slots per week, that most people are not going to go see 4 to 5 movies a week. So therefore, they're going to end up, making that money back because the majority of the people won't, use that up. So basically, yes, it does affect it, because each time you book a ticket with A-list, AMC pays that ticket's value to the studio, even though you are not paying AMC for it. So yes, it does affect it, and it does count in the same way as any other ticket sale. Then Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey made more money, but like Supergirl's only been playing for like 2 days, so it's kind of an unfair comparison. If you're asking about opening weekend for Birds of Prey, I could look that up real quick. Birds of Prey opening day box office, because that's what we have so far for Supergirl. Birds of Prey grossed an estimated $13 million on its opening day, which is pretty much what they're expecting Supergirl to do. But overall for the weekend, Birds of Prey came in at $33.2 million. Supergirl is expected to do slightly better than that. So, but Birds of Prey did really well internationally and ended up having an $81 million opening weekend. Supergirl might come. So there's differences, but yes, it's a fair comparison. Enterprising was saying it's implied in the comics it's an artificial kryptonite sun. A natural occurring kryptonite sun is odd. I do agree with that, because it doesn't make any sense to me. But like, I was like, okay, like who am I?
In the comic, it makes more sense because it was supposed to be a prison for Superman. That the brigands knew about and lured Supergirl to that.
But you know what I mean? I think
the planet.
What you were hinting at, and we'll get to this later in the show because we'll talk more about the whole Superman, canon and how that was adjusted for this movie, because it's early days in the DCU. I think this was one of many elements of the Woman of Tomorrow comic book where I'm not saying it was a direct adaptation. It doesn't need to be. But it's just the richness of the story came from a lot of those details and those elements that this movie could have
unfortunately missing.
Yeah, like I'm not saying adapted one for one, because obviously you gotta adapt the story for where you are in your cinematic universe. I get that, but I'm just saying, like, they just skipped over some of those details. Like the world building was good, but the world building could have been a lot better. Like I was just thinking about the other day, John. Like
Mm.
not only did I want that Ruthie's family getting killed scene to go a lot longer so we can really revel in the evilness of Krem in the beginning, but like I just distinctly remember feeling like the Argo City stuff didn't hit as hard as it should have because they sort of montage most of it, and I understand why they might have done that because obviously it just seems like this movie was edited within an inch of its life. The more I think about it, I would have just appreciated even one or two scenes where we actually saw Carl living and not like as in a montage level, because in the
This movie
montage
needed to
you
be
go
longer.
from you go from the young Supergirl actress in one shot to the next shot, they pan over from the dying mother to Emily Beecham to, oh, it's now Millie Alcock playing the character, and I'm like, I wanted to see a scene. I want to get to know, because the thing is, in the comic, it's a big plot point that the people on Argo City dying and how that affects Kara, that dread. And so you gotta
Which
let
ironic
that
because it's
breathe.
not shown in the
So,
comic. It's like barely shown. It's just
but you
there's like
see,
a passing mention of it.
but like your
So
brain fills in the details, right? But when you're watching a movie, this is the difference
yeah,
between watching a movie and reading a comic book. Reading is an active, you're doing something that is engaging your brain actively, where you are then taking those words and then you're imagining what that looks like in your mind's eye. Watching a movie, like watching TV, is a passive activity. So you cannot expect the audiences to just imagine things. You need to show them that.
yeah.
So I feel like here's the thing. As much as you want to hate the theatrical version of Justice League, and the color grading aside and all that, I did enjoy that Russian family that they brought in with the Joss Whedon reshoots, because it did add a little bit of heart and a little bit of like,
Which
normal
they
like
cut out
people
because
dread.
that was mainly Cyborg's job, but you know.
Right, but you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, like I'm not saying like that they should have done that, just like the whole Joss Whedon thing was messed up, like in terms of like bringing in a director,
Yeah,
firing
no,
like all that stuff. But I'm saying like you needed to see some people on Krypton that or on Argo City
I mean,
that
I
Supergirl
said this
knew.
before, like the whole thing was like,
And
oh, it's
yeah,
Mad Max vibes. Then you should have fucking gotten George Miller. Like, I
right.
understand, like, George Miller
So
is in a really bad place in terms of his
yeah,
relationship with WB, but like James Gunn could have been like, okay, well, you don't have to fucking worry about WB. I
yeah.
got you.
Oh,
I'll
we'll get
protect
to
you
that
from
later.
that.
Yeah,
And so that's what it should have been, George Miller. Like, I know Furiosa didn't do very well, but a lot of people liked it. But it should have been like George Miller should have been the director of this movie, because it feels like he could have given us a good visual style, even though the movie maybe wasn't as great. Maybe the writing was still would
mm-hmm.
have suffered, but at least it would have been nice to look at, which this movie frankly wasn't. It wasn't nice to look at. Half of it was brown and half of it was terrible fucking green screen shots or AR wall volume shots, whatever the fuck they actually used.
Yeah.
But
John, we do have the cinema score that Steven pointed out. We should talk about that in a moment. But I did want to address a couple of things from CC Black. Gunn is a great director, but it's still too early to tell whether he's a great studio executive. I feel like for more things than not, he's gotten his decisions right, and it's too early to be like, oh no, he's not a great studio executive. It's one movie that he produced and didn't direct. Let's give it. You gotta judge him on a body of work, not just one thing. So I think it's too early to tell, and I don't think, again, if Hollywood learns the wrong lessons, those would be the lessons that oh, we don't need to do female-led superhero movies because nobody's interested. That's not what happened here. That's not the case at all. Do you think DC will DC will bounce back from this? I absolutely think they will bounce back from this.
I think the Argo City stuff was the best part of the movie, by the way. I agree with him.
Yeah. And Hello Chimera, of course, and MTG. MTG's got a new photo. Hello. Agree on Craig struggles shooting these action. Yeah, and we'll keep going into that later in DCU Daily part of the show. I mean, it's a fun movie. I actually personally enjoy the first Ant-Man movie more, Nelson, but I still think it's a fun film. I think it's
another case of a director should have directing
Yeah.
that above somebody else. That should have been Edgar Wright's movie, but Marvel's like, creative visuals? No, we don't.
Hey
do that.
Chimera.
Let's get the guy who did Yes Man. Get over here.
Yeah, some of the movie reminded me of Chronicles of Riddick. Yeah,
Compliment or
it's-
insult?
I'm pretty sure that's meant to be insult. But before we move forward with box office reports, since you're on Supergirl, I remember mentioning literally yesterday, John. What did I predict? I said Supergirl is likely going to have a B minus cinema score, and would you look at that? It's got a B minus cinema score, which is actually less than Jackass, which got an A minus. So, like, this is not good. This is not good. I believe Steven was mentioning this earlier, which I think he's accurate about. The B minus cinema score for the movie kind of puts it on
But
par
hey,
with
look at
Brave New World.
Backrooms. That movie's killing it, and that also has a B minus. So
I mean, that's true.
just saying.
But again, it's a smaller audience, different kind of a movie. So I mean, again, it's still subjective. But for a big
But like, look at
blockbuster
this
to have a
fucking
B minus
Breadwinner got
doesn't
an A
always
minus. Cinema score is
do
dog
well.
shit. Like I always thought it was dog shit.
I'm just saying it's usually a good indicator of audiences going to see the movie opening weekend. So B minus is not good, but it's just tough going. But let's keep going, John, because Supergirl's not the only movie playing this weekend. And Toy Story 5 is looking to cross 300 million at the box office. That's just domestic. Worldwide, it's going to be like over 500 million. So, yeah, and then Supergirl we talked about 40 to 50 million. I remember at one point the high mark for us was like 77 million. There were predictions. Well, that's way out of the picture now. But even 50 million might be too much, because according to Deadline, it might be looking at around 40 million opening weekend, which is, I mean, the number keeps dropping, and that's not, I just don't want it to get so low that it's in the mid 30s. Like then you'd really be looking at Birds of Prey level, because it opened to like 33 million, had basically the same opening day number with 13 million. But John, speaking of projections falling, comicbookmovie.com kind of narrowed it down again, because it's not even 40 million. Right now, the worst case scenario for this might be playing out, which could mean Supergirl could plummet to as little as 39 million at the US box office. And yeah, that's just not good enough. Like, I know Warner Brothers said the other day that we're reading this article about insiders of Warner Brothers would be okay if this movie made 300 million. That would be like break even. Like they were like, that's success. It's 300 million. If you do 39 million on your opening weekend, and let's just say you double that number internationally, which it's not looking terribly likely. It's probably going to be a lesser number internationally. Let's say you open to 60 million opening weekend. Let's just do the math. You got to 5x that number to get to 300 million. And we mentioned it before, John, but I think it's worth a quick revisit. Obviously, Toy Story 5 is still playing, and Toy Story 5 is dominating. Is going to continue to dominate for a few more weeks. But next week, you get, of course, Minions and Monsters. The week after, you get the live-action Moana. And then the week after, you get the Odyssey. And then you have a bit of a break. There's no big movie coming out the week after. Nobody wants to get in the way of the Odyssey. And then the week after is Spider-Man Brand New Day. And then, from there, at that point, like, the Supergirl would have been in theaters for a month. And, 4 or 5 weekends into it, I just don't know where Supergirl is going to see the daylight to make that $300 million, to 5x its potential opening weekend. Do you feel like this is gonna make 300 million? And if not, then clearly, I mean, Warner Brothers, for them, 300 million is a success. I just don't know how it's gonna get there.
I don't know.
Like, because it's just, they're like,
it's
Harold
just like
is saying,
it's an
hello, Harold.
onslaught of like pain and suffering for this movie, and I feel kind of bad. But I just think it's probably gonna be a failure, which sucks. But what are you gonna do? At the end of the day, I'm just gonna say it. I liked the movie, so that's all I care about.
Same.
But I think, I think this is just gonna be a little bit of a eek, like kind of like a little bit of a shakiness on that foundation. And it just, now in terms of movies, we just got to see how Clayface does. Like, if that movie sucks and Lantern sucks, then the DCU is actually in trouble. And I think if that is the case, and Man of Tomorrow comes out regardless if it's good or not, then David Ellison, I think, will start looking at other people once this thing merges, because that's an issue.
Right. No, I mean, at that point, it would be a pattern. At that point, the majority of the projects would have
However,
missed.
I don't think Lanterns is going to do horribly. It's hard to tell for a fucking TV show. We'll see how the numbers are. But considering that is ripe with controversy already, that's not great. Nobody's really talking about Clayface. That's the thing. But it's it's still another 4 months until that movie comes out. So we'll just see how it goes. And I think when August comes along, later July, early August, they're gonna really start pumping up Clayface. I think at that point, because they need their hopefully that's gonna be the movie of the year for DC. Because
so again, but talking about
pretty much done.
And talking about Supergirl though, like I do agree with Enterprising. If it is the biggest blunder they make in this early going, then that just might mean they won't be giving her another solo movie for a while. She'll be a supporting character, which we know she's going to be in Man of Tomorrow, and whatever comes after, that's like a sequel to Man of Tomorrow, more or less. I don't know if moving this movie to October, or even, I think it would have been better to have it come out in like May or something. But moving it to October, I just don't know. I mean, you got Clayface coming.
No, I think they're saying they should keep Supergirl in theaters until October.
It's Warner Brothers. I highly doubt they're going to keep. They should. I agree with you 100%. It's just not. It's not in 2026. Even
in the
Disney
year of our Lord 2026.
Even Disney will not keep a movie that's not performing. Like it's one thing to keep a movie that's making like $400 or $500 million. If this thing kind of like just taps out at like less than 200 million, like CC Black is talking about, there's no reason to leave it there. Like it's not going to be making money. Theaters are going to want to give screen space to other movies that are coming out that are fresh. I do want to quickly also mention, John, some of you guys mentioned this in the chat, including MTG, like this movie did feel a little generic. I compared it on our first, the day we reviewed it on Wednesday, that Supergirl kind of in some ways felt like those 2023 DCEU movies, where they felt like we have seen this superhero movie story before, and it's not doing enough to stand out and give us something new and different enough. And I was saying it's not as bad as like what we got in 2023, most of those DC movies. Like I think the Variety review talked about like, how basically you would create these like structures of like storytelling cliches in the superhero genre, and then just layer on a bunch of like big action set pieces onto it and tell hollow stories, and James Gunn was going to do the opposite of that, and yet this is what we got for Supergirl. And I think some of that criticism is warranted, but I don't know if it's on James Gunn necessarily. I mean, obviously him being one of the guys in charge, you got to take the responsibility to a certain degree, but yeah, I do think this movie has a bit of that problem where it feels a little generic. We have seen this story play out before. They didn't do enough to make Supergirl's character story stand out enough, and then some of those emotional beats were missing or they were skipped over, like we have talked about. So yeah, and look, if Clayface ends up making more money than that, I think DC could really use the win at that point.
I think it would be really good. I don't think he would ever do it.
I agree with you, Harold, on the.
I think in order to like DCU, get some people back. I think James Gunn should apologize. I think, like, that's not a joke. That's actually not a joke.
You sure?
That should be.
I don't think any studio executive should. I'm just saying.
The only reason I say that is because, as I think it was C Black said, Gunn can't say now he only greenlights great scripts, which is true because clearly this wasn't a great script. Mm-hmm. Like, say however you will. Like, it's not a great script if it's, if people are calling it generic, bland. Clearly, Anna Nogueira was in way above her head. She shouldn't have probably written this movie. But, it's just how it is. So he's like, hey, he should probably be like, hey, I'm sorry, guys. I promise you great scripts. I didn't deliver on that.
I see what you
mean.
We
hope to do better for next time. I'm going to try my best. Maybe we need to reevaluate, blah, 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 do all that stuff. I think that because the Gunn, and I'm not saying this for the people that have already said, fuck you to this universe. Those people are done. We don't have to cater to them. But I'm just saying to the people that are like kind of on the fence, that are like, like,
Hit Chuck Rod.
this is not good. I'm not feeling the rest of this universe. What are we
Mhm.
gonna do now? Because people are like, oh, I can't wait till Man of Tomorrow because Gunn is back. It's like they're skipping 2 other DCU projects.
Mhm.
That's how much people lost faith with this movie. So I think James Gunn should be like, hey, I promised this. You didn't receive that. I apologize. We're gonna try to do better, reevaluate, see what we can do to make a better experience for you guys in theaters and not in theaters, and hopefully we can move on from this and have the DCU continue to be great or something like that. I think that would be a good thing from James Gunn, maybe get those people back. But I don't think he would ever do that because,
Yeah.
there is a slight bit of ego there for all studio execs, even James
Well, it's
Gunn.
also, I think from a PR standpoint, it might just be like, they might be like, the marketing team will not allow him to do that, even if
No,
he
of course not.
wanted
He would
to.
never
It's
do
just-
that.
By the
And
way,
that's
too,
the problem. One guy
yeah.
likes the script. He said it was a great script. What about fucking, maybe like give it to a couple other people, be like, hey, is this good? And if people are like, nah, bro,
Well, dude,
bro,
but
this
no, but
fucking
I'm-
sucks. What are you
okay.
talking about?
Hyperbole aside, I'm sure he wasn't the only one who looked at the script and thought it was like, obviously there's more than Peter Safran probably read it.
I
A number of the other
think
guys on the writing
they
team.
should get
So,
someone who has written a good Wonder Woman run.
Mhm.
So not Tom King or Brian Azzarello, because we don't talk about those. Get like someone who has written a very good Wonder Woman run in the comics,
Mhm.
kind of look over the work to be like, no, this doesn't work. This characterization doesn't work. This is kind of generic. That's not how that would work. Just not to exactly rewrite the script, just like give notes. Like, just be like, hey, maybe try this instead. Maybe make this a little bit less generic. Do an experimental thing here. And just kind of do that. Like, for instance, I think it would have been really awesome because I remember when I was doing like a whole, oh, what if I was in charge of the DCU thing and I
Mhm.
layered out my thing. I think I had like Mark and Draco like co-write the script because I'm like, that I think would have been good because he had a really solid Supergirl run. I think it was either slightly prior to Rebirth or like during Rebirth. He's written some good stuff. I think you should get someone like that to just kind of look it over. Just be like, hey, I don't think this works. But it's like, okay, but you got to make it work for this continuity. Okay, but like this could still be changed. That should be changed. I don't know about Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka's kind of a dickhead from
well, I mean,
what I've
Superman's the
seen,
face
so-
of the DCU. Just Sanju, just to say that's Superman has.
So
been
yeah,
will
I
be the
just
face of
think
this franchise.
yeah, it just
No,
like
fair.
just kind of reevaluate.
Yeah, look, I've been saying it though. I don't think we need look. Some of this still feels like Monday morning quarterback because when you take a step back, if one movie underperformed, did not hit the mark, because again we're kind of still. I feel a little bad that we're like the Grim Reapers here, even before the opening weekend is done. But the numbers obviously aren't looking good, and then it's a really big uphill climb from here if it's going to be successful based on Warner Brothers' own metrics. But having said all that, I think sometimes you have to take a step back and say, okay, we done messed up, but let's move on and let's do better for the next time. I don't think this should be all of a sudden leading us exactly what used to happen in DC before DC Studios, this haphazard like reactive decision making from the executives. That's not what should happen right now. And those executives would have been saying, oh, Ana Nogueira can't write another DC script now. Like, take her off Wonder Woman. No, she's not doing Teen Titans. But like, let's not be reactionary in the moment. I feel like because those projects are independent.
Kelly
of this project,
Thompson, by the
so,
way, is writing Absolute Wonder Woman. Have her come in and just like,
yeah.
not exactly rewrite the script, just be like, hey, tweak some things.
Right. But I mean, so I think like some of that's like there's no need to panic here. There's also like again, you guys are talking about it all, whether you're apologetically saying it or just outright saying it. I don't think this needs to be like all of a sudden, Ana Nogueira can't write scripts anymore on that. We will get to more Ana Nogueira talk later in the show because there is some more nuance, especially with her journey to getting this job for this particular movie in the first place, because apparently it wasn't even the first Supergirl script that she had written. But anywho, so we'll talk about them in more detail later. I just want to kind of wrap up this part of the box office report by saying I agree with some of what MTG was saying. I've been saying this, like, I don't think this is Ana Nogueira's fault. This movie to me,
It's partially her fault.
well, but again, I based on what I know, I don't believe there's no obvious evidence that the script was terrible, because if you trust in James Gunn, then you got to trust that he knows a good script when he sees it, especially considering what he's written, for his own
But it's not
movies
like the
and
animated
ones.
movies make money; they go straight to streaming and straight to video. So
that's a whole different ballgame. Nobody gives a shit. Like, I'm sorry, but like DC animation on streaming, 5 people watch it. It's good for funsies. It's good to fill out an animation slate. It is small potatoes compared to anything that comes out theatrically. There you go. I hate to burst your bubble on that.
But hey, we'll see how the streaming numbers are for Nightfall. Maybe they are fucking bigger than Supergirl, because people actually look excited for Nightfall.
I highly doubt it. But we'll see. We'll see. Especially in terms of real dollars, the dollar value. It's movie in movie theaters is way more valuable than something goes on streaming. But anyway, that's besides the point. What I was trying to say is everything about this movie, based on what I know from behind the scenes stuff, as well as what we have seen in the movie itself, MTG and I agree on a lot of things, where I think this movie was more, the issues are from the editing, the issues are with the direction. And the direction covers a lot of things, like from action direction to, some of the character moments. I think there's some really good moments in this movie, not gonna lie. But then I think this movie plays it too safe in some ways, and then it also just skips over a lot of stuff in other ways. And I don't think that was necessary, because there's no obvious evidence that was because of the script. So I don't think we should be saying, oh no, Ana Nogueira needs a veteran writer or script doctor.
I'm just saying, she's a first-time screenwriter, and the final product kind of feels like that. So
Yeah, no, and look, I'm just saying, figure it out. I'm not trying to look. Yes, it is carrying the comic books world. It is absolutely, Batman is going to do fantastically well for what it is. I'm just saying they play in different playgrounds, and there's levels to this game. Like comic book money in terms of comic books themselves, and streaming show money, and especially animated streaming shows money, live in a different world than movies that go to the box office. It's kind of like talking about how Obsession is breaking all kinds of records and it's made like $300 million because the return on investment is huge. But Toy Story 5 might become the highest grossing animated movie of all time. 2 completely different playgrounds. It's like there's levels to the game. That's what I'm saying. That's it. But yeah, the trauma and backstory stuff. Yeah, some of but the thing is, again, the script. The script. Here's the thing. I just want to say that before we're getting stuck on this for way too much, because we will again circle around to this later. But so trust me, we will get into more of this conversation later. But just gonna say this, John. I think you and I both know this. A lot of people have the wrong idea about what a screenplay actually is.
Yeah.
Most people think a screenplay is akin to a book or a comic book or a graphic novel.
Blueprint.
It's a blueprint. And a blueprint.
The thing is, you still have to make the house. You can't just be like, here's the blueprint. It would be like if a fucking architect, Jon Stewart, handed someone a blueprint, and you'd be like, here's your completed movie, and you're like, this is just a blueprint. Yeah, but it's your house is right there. It's like, no, it's not. This is technically just a drawing of my house and the plan for the house. It's like, well, it's there. No, well, that's what that's like.
But the point is,
it's just like, no, that's not the case.
But the point is, it's a screenplay. While it is a creative, literary document, it's much more so, a production document, which is literally providing all the crew members what they need to do, all the department heads. There's a lot of room for interpretation. There's a lot of things that are missing from a screenplay. So that's what I'm saying. Again, I feel like Ana Nogueira is going to be taking a big bashing. It feels like already she has been for, it was a terrible screening. And look, and we haven't really gotten into, DC doesn't do extensive test screenings. They keep it pretty limited. They have been pretty consistent about that. And most of the test screening reports are usually not accurate. We've talked about that before too. So I wouldn't rely on that reporting. But some scripts are so precise, but those are usually because it's a writer-director situation. When you're doing a for-hire job as a screenwriter, you're not writing a script with the same, sense of direction because you're not going to be the one directing it. They're going to do a director for hire. So it's a blueprint. So you got to remember there's a lot of stuff missing. Like, and if you want to extend the analogy, usually what happens in a script is they will give you a scene. Like, just look at the first 3 pages. John, that first 3 pages of that Spider-Man brand new day script that they put out there with like all the fake written hand notes. But sure, like they're maybe reflecting what they actually did, but those notes were definitely like, for PR purposes. But that is like 3 or 4 pages from the beginning of the movie. That apparently covers the first 18 minutes of the movie, and I can guarantee you, like, if you tried to, attach every word or phrase to a shot in the film, you'd be like, there's no mention of the last 5 shots or that whole sequence of the montage anywhere in this screenplay. Because the screenplay doesn't give you, like, sometimes all they do is, oh, now they get into a fight. Here's a montage of Spider-Man beating up Ramrod, Boomerang, and, villain Z-1000 1-2, and Spider-Man's reading, voicing the letter that he wrote years ago. Now the director has to make that into something that is actually visually, gonna play out in the story. So there's a lot of stuff. So I'm just saying, I think the director should take more of the blame. And then the editing, certainly, I just felt like was really much more lacking. And yeah, now it's 57% Rotten, Hello Hunter-Igi, and 76% popcorn meter. So yeah, I don't think it's going to hit 60%, John. Supergirl is likely going to stay in the 50s, which is unfortunate. But yeah. All right, well, let's get back to talking about the box office, John. There is another big movie coming out that I think deserves a lot of our attention. Because
that's also ripe with controversy and, but this one's doing well.
Different reasons, but this is going to do well. This is going to do amazingly well, I feel like, because the Odyssey is looking at an $80 to $100 million opening voyage at the US box office, Deadline says, which, John, I think holds significance because remember Oppenheimer opened to like 80 some odd million dollars. It opened to... Like, remember, Oppenheimer was actually eyeing 40 to 50 million, kind of like what they were talking about with Supergirl. And then it opened to $82.4 million, which was, I think, Nolan's biggest opening weekend since the Dark Knight trilogy. Now, that was also the highest grossing opening weekend of an original film until, like, Project Hail Mary came out. In terms of, like, a movie that's, it's an adaptation, but it's not a sequel, spin-off, prequel to another thing, or a reboot, remake. And the Odyssey might actually beat that record because I feel like Project Hail Mary didn't make 100 million, right? Like, what was his opening weekend? Project Hail Mary opened to, let's just have Google tell us. It opened to 80.5 million domestically. So it almost got to the Oppenheimer number, but I think that was like the highest original movie opening domestically. And you add I think worldwide it was 140.9 million. So it was the highest domestic opening weekend for an original film since Oppenheimer. And now the Odyssey, again, another Christopher Nolan movie, could probably get that number because 80 to 100 million, that means on the low end it's probably going to do Oppenheimer numbers. On the high end, it could be the first $100 million plus opening weekend for Christopher Nolan since the Dark Knight trilogy. So, and it's been a long time since the Dark Knight trilogy wrapped up, John. So this is really, really good, especially considering Oppenheimer almost doubled this opening weekend projections. It was going to be 40 to 50, made 82. 80 to 100 might be like underselling it. Like, how do you react to this? Because Christopher Nolan had 160.9 million opening weekend with The Dark Knight Rises, 158.4 with The Dark Knight, and then of course Oppenheimer, I mentioned 82.4. Those are his 3 highest opening weekends of his career. This one here is going to land somewhere in that range, 80 to 100 million, and if Oppenheimer was any kind of measure, it might go even higher than that. What do you think of this? And do you really feel like it can even actually go way beyond 100 million opening weekend?
I think so. I think despite the loud minority being like, "Meh, black people," I think this is definitely. I think it's gonna make higher than Oppenheimer because it's like more actiony and all that. So there's more appeal. That I think like maybe 90 to 95 opening weekend. I think that would be definitely. I think that would definitely be.
I mean, I'm willing to bet that this.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, considering we have seen several movies this year open to higher numbers than the projections called for. I'm willing to bet this movie opens to probably like 125, 130 million. I think the Odyssey has enough hype, and we're still a few weeks out, so it's only going to keep getting better and pick up. And then once the reviews come out, like, I think there's enough anticipation here, there's enough of a drive, and I think Universal's done a good job of the marketing. And even like, Sir President Christopher Nolan's like been, trotting himself out to a lot of promotional stuff, and I think 125, 130 is in line. Like, these projections will rise, much like one of his highest opening weekends, which was a Dark Knight Rises. Just the other note, by the way, if it does open to that kind of a number, Oppenheimer 4x'd his opening weekend and finished with 330 million stateside, and then basically you add up the rest of the international number, it almost made $1 billion. That was one of his highest, opening weekend to total, how much money, the legs that the movie had. Oppenheimer had the second longest legs of any movie that Nolan has made. Inception had the highest, which 4.7x'd from a 62.7 million North America opening weekend to 292.5 ultimately that it finished up at. So if this opens to over 100 million and then does 4 times as much business, then that means the Odyssey could make close to 500 million domestically alone. And then I think honestly, if all that happens, if I'm doing my math correctly, I think the Odyssey could become Sir President Christopher Nolan's first $1 billion movie since The Dark Knight Rises. And that's very, very possible. Even with Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out, I think with Oppenheimer proving that it could make almost $1 billion against Barbie, why can't the Odyssey make $1 billion against Spider-Man, Could Nolan have made Supergirl a blockbuster? Of course he could have. Of course, I think, but if he was gonna do Supergirl, he would have been writing the script himself or working with somebody else. So it would have been a completely different kind of movie. So it's a very broad question, Nelson, but I think it would have been a different scenario entirely. The Oppenheimer momentum is still there. Obviously, he's one of maybe, I don't know, a handful of directors that people go to the movie to go see. He is the draw. It doesn't matter that you got every big actor in Hollywood in this movie. You're going to see it because it's Sir President, it's Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. It doesn't say on the poster Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, 5 other guys, John Bernthal. It says Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. He is the draw. I don't know, John. There's Spielberg, there's Nolan, there's James Cameron. Then you got the more indie art house guys like Zach Krieger, and give me there's who's the guy making Werewolf right now? Why am I forgetting his name?
Robert Eggers.
There's a few of those guys, but when we talk about big box office, there's 3, maybe 4 names where the director is the draw, and the Odyssey is exactly that. So Nolan doesn't even have a laptop. His aura.
He doesn't even have a phone.
He has a flip phone. I want a flip phone and help me disconnect from the world.
Get a Commodore's $500 flip phone then.
Yeah, I should. That's actually not bad.
I'm joking. Buy a prepaid one from CVS for $20. Calm down.
I bought a bunch of those back in the day. I was making a movie and we needed to smash them for the bad guy needed to smash a phone. So I just went and bought a bunch of prepaid ones, and then we just had fun tossing them at the wall and then watching them explode on camera. It was good fun. Movie making could be fun. Supergirl won't surpass the Marvels. Hi, Divas Masara. We talked about it already. It's gonna be a struggle, but we'll get back to that later. Do you guys know if the cast got paid for this movie, or are they taking pay cuts because Nolan? I'm gonna say probably somewhere in the middle. There probably are taking pay cuts, but they're probably not taking pay cuts to the degree a pay cut as a slight pay cut. But I don't think anybody's we're taking 1/10 of what we usually get paid, because Universal has money to spare, and it's Christopher Nolan. They gave it a good budget. So, we'll get back to the Supergirl talk later. But I think 200 right now it's looking like 200 might be the high point for Supergirl at the box office.
Anyway,
but we'll leave the
Marvel
box office
time.
report there.
Marvel time, because I'm fucking sick of it's an hour, guys, just for the fucking box office report. Jesus fuck. Anyway,
John, this is why I keep all the DC stuff separate.
Well, it was the box office, so that's why I put it at the front. But hey, it gets people involved, right? Marvel fans think they're just spotted another iconic villain in Daredevil Born Again Season 3, and apparently it might be Typhoid Mary, played by Alice Eve, who might be coming back now. I don't think we have any actual pictures.
Do we have any photos here?
I don't think so, but they've been
Oh no, click it.
spotted
You can see the
in.
image. Wait. Click it. You can see the image here. Go up. It's in line. Go up. It's right there. You can go down. Second paragraph, John. It says you can see the photo
There
images
it
here.
is.
There you go.
Well, then there we go.
Right in your chat, John says figure drawing. Give the people what we want. Hey, that's what we're all about. Oh, is that Alice Eve? I mean, it could be the back of her head. Sure.
I mean,
the front of
it
her
would be
head.
nice. I mean, Alice Eve needs a win after like whatever
Yeah.
fucking Hallmark movie she made like 2 years ago. Man, it's just
what is she
crazy how
doing
like
these
she
days?
showed her cleavage
God.
once, and then all the feminists got mad, and now she has no career. This is why we can't have nice things. You know?
I don't get it. I think she's a good actress too.
She's a really good actress. But like everyone lost their shit because she willingly
Star Trek?
consented to this movie, and then everyone lost their minds, and now she didn't ever like, because that was the thing. Star Trek Into Darkness was her big like claim to fame, quote unquote. And then after that controversy or non-controversy, she fucking had like nothing after that.
Agreed. Well, I'm agreeing with the Divas Massara about it. Elodie Young definitely still got it. No, I thought it was just like she just made some bad picks with like the project she took on, or I don't know, maybe she just wasn't offered much that was big. But even that Star Trek, like, was it Into Darkness? Was it, or was it the third one? Which one was that? She was in Into Darkness, right? The second Abrams Star Trek. Yeah, her role wasn't that prominent either. I mean, and that scene was a little like out of nowhere, and it wasn't even for that long. I'm like, we got that much cleavage from Adrian Palicki in one of the G.I. Joe movies, so it's fine. But yeah, it's unfortunate that her career hasn't blossomed from there. So, but maybe, hey, this could be her way back. This could be her way back, John, if she gets back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She is very engaging in interviews. She is, and she's a good actress too.
She's hashtag relatable, guys.
Yeah, maybe we will get her back as Typhoid Mary. That's a cool sounding name.
Yeah,
don't get
she's
Typhoid,
like Harley Quinn, but like actually interesting as a character. Anyway,
of course.
Speaking of your boy, Digger, it was actually really funny. Like, two of my friends who went to go see Supergirl who didn't know about the new Digger trailer, which was, you know, like 90% of it was just ego stroking Tom Cruise. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And I wasn't near my phone at the time. So like, why is it just, they're like, it's just a collection of Tom Cruise movies? What is this? And they're like, oh, it's a Digger trailer? Okay, like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I thought it was cool. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, there's a good chance that Daredevil does show up in Brand New Day. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Anyway, so little history for you. It'll be quick. Way back in the 90s when they tried to make an Iron
back
Man
in the
movie.
90s. Sorry.
Yes, back in the 90s that when they tried to get make an Iron Man movie, Tom Cruise was the guy that they wanted, because honestly, I could see it. But like they wanted to do a lot of like weird stuff with it. I think I have like an old script somewhere lying around on my Google Drive, but they like Tom Cruise was the guy, but he was too expensive, and it was like pretty much an indie movie, which is kind of what the original Iron Man ended up being anyway. And there was just a lot of back and forth where they just couldn't get it made. It was in development hell for a while. But so that was like the idea. Oh my God, Tom Cruise as Tony Stark. So that, and then they moved on. Tom Cruise was too expensive, so they like, you know, got recently, you know, they got RDJ. So, and you know, the rest is history. But there was the idea that, you know, Tom Cruise could, you know, come back, because I mean there was reports and rumors that like, oh, Tom Cruise is going to come back to play a Tony Stark variant in the Multiverse of Madness, where he was going to play Superior Iron Man, who would have fit right in with the Illuminati, because Superior Iron Man is definitely more of a villainous kind of Tony Stark, well, more so than the regular Tony Stark. So essentially, that's what I think this is. If this is true, you know, we'll see. But Cruise has been linked to the role of Tony Stark since the first Iron Man movie was released back in 2008, and is believed to have been one of the actors Marvel was looking to play the Armored Avenger prior to Robert Downey Jr. being cast. I believe Timothy Olyphant was also on the short list, who also would have been really good. Rumors persisted that Kevin Feige was either eager to have the Hollywood megastar join the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a Tony Stark variant, and reports have claimed that Cruise was in talks to appear in Multiverse of Madness before a scheduling conflict forced him to decline the offer. Cruise has generally sidestepped questions about his potential involvement with the franchise, but did share following the following response when asked how close he came to playing Tony Stark during a 2023 interview. Not close. Not close. I love Robert Downey, and I can't imagine anyone else playing this role, and I think it's perfect for him. I look at a movie and think, I don't rule anything out. It's what's the story? What's the character? Does it interest me? Do I feel this is what an audience would like to see me in? What can I learn? What can I contribute? And that's really how I look at things. Downey Jr., coming back as Doctor Doom, the door is open for another actor to step into the role of Tony Stark, and My Time to Shine is now claiming that Marvel Studios is talking with the actor about a potential role in Avengers Secret Wars. Nobody would blame Kevin Feige for wanting one of the biggest stars on the planet to bring his star power to the MCU, but that doesn't mean Cruise would necessarily have much interest. If he does agree to appear, could we see him play the villainous superior Iron Man, perhaps? And that was kind of the, that's who they wanted to play. So I think he could do that. I think that could be really cool. Because I remember in the 90s that maybe there were talks, but that was kind of it. But outside of that, not really. But it could be fun. I don't know. I don't think this really holds any water. I don't think this I'm holding water though. But I think Tom Cruise is kind of sticking with Digger right now, and kind of maybe he wants to wait a bit and see how that does, and then kind of go into this if that fails, experimental, and then falling back and give me money now. Not like he needs it, but could it be cool? Absolutely, but I don't see it as likely. I think maybe.
I mean, it'd be an easy payday though.
Kevin Feige wants it, but I don't see it as incredibly likely at all. So,
we shall see.
Anyway, there he goes. There he goes, your boy Tom Cruise. But now we get into Spider-Man Brand New Day things. Let me close out of stuff because people keep texting me. But now we get into a bit of this because now we have the the references to the comic books that these are, showing off, like Tarantula and Boomerang, the Amazing Fantasy, the Ramrod, the Scorpion one. I think this one's the newest one. And it definitely is weird because this doesn't look like the one in the movie that was in that trailer. It looks really different. So maybe he does get an upgrade. One can only hope. So, yeah, looking good.
Yeah, that looks like from early in the. Yeah, that looks like he might be fighting him twice. Scorpion might fight him a couple because that's in winter time. He's got a jacket on.
And he's looking like Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I just love all the references. Dude, Andrew Garfield is the GOAT Spider-Man. Come on now.
Anyway.
He's aged gracefully as Spider-Man.
But now we have a bit of a new TV spot, which doesn't feature a ton of new footage, but still a little bit. We have the spider tracker stuff that Ned leads, and also mimicking the scene from, early on in the film, but, and as well as, him showing off the organic webbing.
Yeah,
and
just
how it
extended looks at some of the stuff we have seen before.
Just,
Yeah. Yeah, I think in fact that new Scorpion shot is from that new ad spot, which is good to see. Nice.
Indubitably.
Marketing continues.
Anyway, But apparently, the Spider-Man Brand New Day second trailer launch is the second biggest of all time, with over half billion views. Meanwhile, Supergirl like limping to the finish line. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is just counting his money at the finish line already. So,
dude, it's like, okay, so Spider-Man Brand New Day's second trailer launch is the second biggest of all time with over 500 million views, second only to Spider-Man Brand New Day's first trailer launch, which had the highest, like 1 billion views, which was the highest of all time. Dude, both of his trailers have the number 1 and number 2 spot in the most viewed trailers of all time. Like, you know what I was saying earlier, John? There's levels to this game. And there's an example of that. This is the reason why they're predicting that we might be getting the biggest summer at the box office since 2019, when the last time they made like over $4 billion. It was $4.3 billion that they made at the box office in 2019 in the summer months. This summer we might get to $4.2 billion. And it's going to be because, in large part, to Spider-Man Brand New Day. You got the Odyssey, you got Toy Story 5. All the other smaller movies will contribute to that as well. But it's going to be mostly because of those 3 big ones. Spider-Man, the Odyssey, and Toy Story 5. Because they will all bring in $1 billion probably at minimum. So, yeah. This is, at this point, it's like, Spider-Man's in the peak of his earning era right now. This is just the trailer. I'm telling you guys, Spider-Man Brand New Day could be a $2 billion movie. It could be, because Deadpool Wolverine held the record for a bit for the trailer and stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But that was never going to translate to like $2 billion.
I'm a little worried about it, but it's just like me being distrusting of Marvel. But I hope that it's good. I really want it to be good, especially after Supergirl kind of struggling to the finish line. I do hope that Spider-Man gives us a quality film that's bigger and better than Supergirl.
Yeah, and again, it is a little bit of apples to oranges, because this is the fourth Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man's the fucking biggest superhero of all fucking time. Supergirl's barely a niche character, right? So.
Also, in addition to that, this is the 4th movie with Tom Holland. That was just the first movie with Millie Alcock. So it's like, and then like I mentioned, it's like the 8th overall Spider-Man movie that they released with him as the lead character. More than that, actually, if you count the Spider-Verse movies. Whereas Supergirl only had one other movie 3 decades ago that nobody remembers. So yeah, and also mostly nobody remembers. But yeah, so, I mean, you remember, John, but I'm sorry to tell you this: 9 out of 10 people you ask, they'd be like, "There was another Supergirl movie? What?" Like, nobody remembers. But hey, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Good for you, John. Exactly.
Yeah.
CC Black's like, John, I want my money in all $20 bills.
Dude, you're gonna get fucking Cash App and you're gonna fucking like it, alright? I'm not sending you cash over the mail. Fucking stupid.
Anyway. Alright, let's get to the quickest, John.
Anyway. Hang on, let me fucking, get the goddamn... It's been like 2 seconds. Calm down.
It's all good. I'll give
anyway,
you,
Directors Guild of America ratifies new 4-year deal aimed at protecting jobs amid industry slump.
Good.
Cool.
This is good. I mean, so ratifying mean like now this is like the law. This is the new... basically, Nolan said that it's an incredible show of support from our membership for this new contract shows the strength of our unity and our solidarity. So usually how it works is you first get a deal, and then you have your members vote on it, and then once they vote to approve it, that gets ratified. So, good. Now the directors are all set for the next 4 years.
Cool. Way to
Kevin.
go.
How you doing, man?
Your boy Nolan being your boy. Yeah. Anyway, Adult Swim announces Cartoon Network docuseries plus 2 anthology anniversary specials from Robot Chicken. Cool. Nice. Anyway. Would the Ellisons give up CNN to get Warner Mount done? Short answer, no.
So, okay.
Long answer, no.
So basically, this was in Puck News with Matthew Bellany talking about how the word around town is Rob Bonta, who's the California Attorney General, who's leading the upcoming would-be lawsuit from the attorneys general against this merger. They may not be, they probably know, because they haven't filed yet, that they probably are not going to be able to win that case, but they might just settle for the Ellisons divesting CNN from the newly merged company. And if that's all it takes, I bet you, I'm gonna bet that they would be willing to just let CNN go if that's all it came down to. I don't think it matters to them as much as we think, because they already have CBS News, right? So, but that's the question right now. That's the question. I mean, we talked about they might, for the Europeans, they might have to get rid of Nickelodeon or stuff. Like, that does bring the company down a notch or two. Like, if you don't have CNN, if you don't have Nickelodeon, you lose a little bit of that luster from all that Warner Brothers and then, Paramount properties that they'll be able to then monetize into franchises and other things. So, yeah. I hope they do. Like, honestly, if this comes true, I wouldn't mind it at all. I think CNN would be way better off.
Another billionaire doesn't own the fucking news and whatever. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of going from bitch-ass people to goated people, Lloyd Kaufman, baby, looks at legacy of legendary Troma Entertainment. It birthed the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The veteran producer and filmmaker, recipient of the Rain Dance Film Festival Icon Award, is currently prepping an adaptation of Crime and Punishment titled The Power of Positive Murder. Fucking Lloyd Kaufman's the GOAT, man.
I mean, isn't awesome. Like with James Gunn, there was Kevin Costner. There's so many people that I didn't even realize, like, so many people started off with Troma. Samuel L. Jackson, Billy Bob Thornton, Oliver Stone. Wow. I mean, we always think about James Gunn from his Troma days, but like, there's a bunch of other big names that also kind of like owe their early success to Troma. So good stuff.
Anyway. Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour set Stranger Things reunion as stars of spy series ordered by Netflix from adolescence's Jack Thorne and A24. Gross, A24.
Well, so it looks like the rumors of their falling out were greatly exaggerated. David Harbour and Millie Bobby Brown have addressed that. It was, they blew it completely out of proportion that they had a falling out on the set of Stranger Things, and this reunion clearly, in a spy series, further confirms that. So I'd be interested in this. Let's see what it turns into. I like a good spy series. I have to start on the Agency season 2 right now.
Speaking of A24, apparently A24 has doubled down on their Google AI partnership. And studio doesn't want to necessarily love Gen AI content, but we'd rather have a seat at the table. So it's like, it seems like I know they're trying to come across as, we'd rather like be a part of it, like almost like a double agent trying to give artists a voice. But it really it really feels like them saying, well, we want to be part of the thing that's destroying the world and art. It's like, yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but it doesn't come across as that. You're just coming across as a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Good for you. You took the money. You're doing the thing. You're not the only ones. You probably won't be the first or the last. And whatever. I mean, it's a wave. Like, 75 million honestly is also not that much money in all things considered. Like, there's a lot more money exchanging hands at higher levels than that. So, yeah, like, what was it? Amazon spending $50 billion on OpenAI, and then that's why they dropped Artificial. Again, levels to this game. So.
Yep. Anyway, Lee Cronin's The Mummy sets HBO Max release date, which is going to be July 3rd. And will premiere on HBO Linear on the 4th of July, because nothing says America like an Egyptian mythology film.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Anyway, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 taps Gary Doberman to pen script. Guys, we might be getting an actually good Five Nights at Freddy's movie now. That's crazy, bro.
You know what? I still can't believe it. I remember when the first of these came out and we reviewed it on the channel back then. I cannot believe they're getting 3 movies out of this, but good for them. And
as long as Scott Cawthon is not writing the movie, we might actually get something halfway decent.
Yeah.
Gary Doberman has been iffy over the years. Like, he's done like really, really good work. Like, he was part of the Swamp Thing show. He also did rewrites to It and wrote It Chapter 2, which I think are for the most part well scripts, and some of the Annabelle movies that were much better than the original movie. But he's also done some bad work as well. He's kind of hit and miss, but like I'll take him over Scott Cawthon. Scott Cawthon cannot write a fucking movie, as evident with the first two films, which the first is mid and the second is so mediocre that I struggled to stay awake while watching that goddamn movie.
Yeah,
So-
I heard nothing but bad things about the second one. That was that's what I'm saying. I can't believe they didn't do the third one. Maybe it made just enough for them to justify doing a third one.
Because the thing is, return on investment for horror movies is like huge. You can make it for like $2 million, and then within opening weekend, you're fine. So you know. And then finally, we've seen the first footage from Disney's magical new movie Hexed, which apparently is just a ripoff of Owl House, which in and of itself is a ripoff of Halloween Town. So here we have Disney ripping themselves off once again after the Encanto ripping off Up and Away debacle. So here we are.
Good stuff.
Cool. I have no
Hello,
interest
Emo
in
Nerd
this,
Girl.
so
How you doing?
That's why I threw it into quick hits. Anyway,
Just
that's
getting
it.
into DCU Daily soon. So yeah, that's
Very
the quick
soon.
hits. Wow.
The quick hits were
wait,
quick.
That's not it. There you go. That's it. Sorry, I was supposed to
I
move
was trying to
out of the
move
way.
that away from it. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Same Z.
thanks for watching. Now let's get into DCU Daily. James Gunn, take us home after you shit the bed. Sir.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you wanna shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hello, ladies and gents. Here we are. Who am I? I'm not Jean Valjean. I'm John Valjean. What? Anyway, Dan's
John
here
Claude Van
too.
Damme. Oh,
What are you excited to talk about today, Dan? AKA the only thing to talk about, which is literally just Supergirl content. So
yeah. I think it's gonna be interesting talking about Ana Nogueira's comments and Craig Gillespie's comments on the movie. It's kind of funny because clearly the studio didn't want those things getting out before the movie came out, which, whether to their benefit or not, I think they probably thought it would be to their benefit, but it's not playing out that way. So, but anyway, also like I saw some of the reviews for Supergirl talking about how Crypto has been like one of the highlights of this early DCU days, and this sidelined him for most of the movie, and I was like, you know what, I did kind of miss that. Like, you don't really see him for more than a few scenes in the beginning, and then he's gone until the end. It's like the movie just has a different energy when he's on screen. But he wasn't on a lot of the flashbacks, so it's not like he's not in it at all. But still, anyway, let's get started.
But the first thing, ironically, well, it's the beginning of all of this, and that was,
That's what she said.
I know. That's what she said. Anyway. Moving on.
I already did the joke.
But Bilky Evely apparently attended the New York City premiere, and they had the awesome display by Matt Lopez and the
Ulta Beauty, baby.
thing. So yeah,
Great
is
artwork.
cool.
I like it.
Very nice.
Wish the movie had this much color.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm the one saying it, but I do wish that the movie, it just had, like you said, it had this like dirty brown feeling.
I don't mind it if it works, but it's just like, it also doesn't help with the fact that the comic exists the way it does. Like, say what you will, I mean, the comic might be trash. The art is not one of the reasons why. So, it's just like, damn, that's a shame, but what are you going to do? Anyway, Craig wanted gray and brown. But we were kind of talking about this yesterday about how Millie Alcock found out she was Supergirl over like a text. Because like he called her, but she didn't answer because she's Gen Z. Why the fuck would she answer her phone like that? So she found out like, oh yeah, oh shit, it's on my phone. Like, James, what the fuck? They're like, I tried to call you. Oh, whoopsies. Touche.
No, I just I feel like she's been there's like multiple. I've been getting all these reels with her talking about the same story, and it's like she's mentioned it in a few different ways, basically. Because when you do so many podcasts, you're gonna get asked the same questions, and you're telling the same stories again and again. But basically, I think she's mentioned like she got an email about it. James Gunn texted her, and then James Gunn had like rebutted at one point because they were in the same room for like this is months ago when they were promoting the movie, that he had tried to call her and her phone went to voicemail. So then he just texted her with the image from Deadline.com revealing that she got the part. And then of course we talked about yesterday that she went and got a bunch of cheap booze and just had a good time with her friends and danced and celebrated, which is great. I do think as we go on though, John, she does talk a lot about, and we'll get to the interview, and so I'll leave it for that. But like Millie Alcock, it doesn't really come from like a Hollywood family, so there's a relatability to her in terms of when you see her talk in these interviews, which I do appreciate because she doesn't sound like she's somebody who's like been in Hollywood for too long. And we'll talk about it more as we get into. There's an interview they released from Variety, which I think is really insightful. I highly encourage you guys to read through it. By the way, it's a little long, but if you read it, you'll get a better idea of who she is because she's going to be around in the DCU for a long time, regardless of whether we get another Supergirl movie or not. So,
yeah. But next up, we talk about you have Millie talking about the evolving suit, and how not only how it literally changed from Superman, which was kind of slightly different. It didn't have as much of a it had a smaller belt. The cloth was like more of that, like more like polymer fabric that the Superman suit is made of. But it's also like how it involves how the suit is only used in like the last tiny bit of the movie, which also kind of doesn't make sense because she's like casually wearing it at the end of Superman. So sure, I guess
that was also a Craig Gillespie decision. We'll get to that later too in one of his quotes.
But I mean, yeah, like what are you gonna do? But it's just like I like her, talking about this. I mean, there's also the idea of how the continuity is now kind of fucked right now because it's like, she claims she got to Earth when she was like 14.
No, she said 15. One of the interviews she said she was 15.
Here's the thing.
So
she's
been
23 now, but yet Superman found her, yet he's only 3 years into his mission as Superman.
I was gonna say the math doesn't add up, The
math ain't mathing, my guy, and we're fucking 2 movies in, and you already butt fucked the continuity. So great.
I think Liz called it out like 2 days ago, and I didn't quite understand what she was getting at because I'm like the timing makes sense, but it's completely it doesn't make sense because if she was 15 and he's only been Superman for 3 years. Unless he was just being secret Superman at the time. I don't know what that would look like. Yeah. Like she's been Supergirling, like she's been like, not doing her thing for 8 years. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, whatever. Stop hitting him. He's already dead. Don't do the math. I mean, anyway. maybe she has the wrong. I mean, I don't know. It's not the biggest plot hole. It's fine. It's nobody. I mean, I see most people didn't even care about it. It's fine.
And sure then you have Lobo, your boy, Jason Momoa, talking about Lobo and how the fuck do you keep the goddamn cigar in your mouth while you're fighting? He's like, it's surprisingly very difficult.
Hey, Man of Stone.
So yeah, he's kind of just talking about this and how great it is and. How fun it was and all that stuff.
So he found like those huge cigars. What do they call them? Like there was like a name for them.
Blunts? I don't know.
No. There's like these huge cigars, and then he went to the prop master. But he got them in London. He's like, make me this, obviously, but not the real thing. They have to be electronic. It has to constantly have the glow. And then like,
which is why
I cancer.
Which is funny. Because literally watching this movie, I was looking at that cigar. I'm like, that is one fake ass fucking cigar because again my dad smokes cigars, so I know how a fucking cigar looks, even though he doesn't have the big ones like Lobo in the movie. I'm like, that looks so fucking fake, it's not even funny. And I'm like, that was a little distracting, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that is a fake ass cigar.
But like basically this whole thing was about like cigar acting, because you know you got to like make sure it doesn't fall out of your mouth and everything, which I'm like, it's, you know what, I think Jason Momoa can handle it, so yeah.
Yeah, he can handle it. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's actually smoked cigars IRL, but
Yeah.
Then we got a KFC commercial because sure, why not?
Another case. This was like a little bit of like sound from the movie, like, or the trailer, and they're just like redoing it, like it's like
But with chicken.
recreating it using chicken, yeah. And there's Lobo on
And
a
you know, Lobo riding a
potato
wedge.
Yeah,
Because
there you
sure.
go.
Yeah. Anyway,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, but the thing is, there was also the idea of, you know, I think it was like, oh, he was pointless. Here's the thing: if it wasn't for Lobo, undoing all the tanks with the brides in them, then it wouldn't have led to the events of Ruthie and Kara splitting off, Kara getting mad, and then finally getting answers her own way without Ruthie, thus
Right.
getting her to the Kryptonite planet, thus getting her to Krem. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Lobo wasn't totally pointless. Get off your dick. Anyway. But there was this, you know, interview with Millie Alcock about
This is the one I was talking about. This was really insightful. I think that, so basically they published this in a print edition of Variety, I think earlier this year. And then they just put the whole interview online today. So definitely go into it, because it talks a lot about, well, obviously it's Millie Alcock talking a lot about her experience getting the role. Like she described the whole process, and I recommend you reading the whole interview, because you will get a much better insight into who she is as a person, obviously her experience, you know, getting the part, working with Craig Gillespie, and as well as her interactions with Peter Safran, James Gunn. But like, I'll just give you guys a couple of like, you know, highlights. And she talked about how when she was getting by the way, I don't know if you can zoom into this a little bit, but like she was talking about how when she first heard about this role, because she said that after House of the Dragon, she didn't do anything for like a year. She just did like a play. And so she was back in Australia. She was like back with her family in her family home, and she was like, you know, and all the stuff that comes with it, you know, because like if you move back in with your parents or something, like it's not always pretty, right? And she's like in her 20s, right? So and she's on the other side of the world in Australia, and then she gets you know, this her agent tells her about this opportunity, so she does a self-tape audition, which is what most actors do today, like you saw in you know, Wonder Man. Most of the auditions today, when you initially send in your first audition, it's a self-tape. You do it at home, wherever you are. You don't actually go somewhere anymore. Now it's all remote stuff. When she sent that over, then she got a call back, and they were like, we need you to come in and do a screen test. And so by the way, hello Jordan, how are you doing? I mean, it's a mixed bag, Jordan, but yeah, we'll get into that more later. So then she got told by, like, James Gunn wants to do a screen test with you. I think Peter Safran reached out to her or something like that. So basically she was like, oh, I had to fly from Australia to Atlanta, which is, that's a long way. That takes like a day to like, and it's, you don't even do a continuous flight. You got to like stop across like two different, so that's a long trip. So then when she came over, they put her in a suit. Then they had another actor. Usually it could be like many actors that do this. Like, remember for Superman and Lois, they had 3 pairings. For Supergirl, apparently by the time it got to the test screening or the screen test, they only had her and one other actor who were there. So she was like, she doesn't know this other person. She hasn't really met her or like knows her since, but she was really nice. So Millie Alcock conveniently does not name this other actress. She's like, probably doesn't want to or can't do it, or, you know, she was told not to. But basically it came down to her and one other person. And
pretty
she
sure it
got
was
the
Meg
role.
Donnelly, but I could be wrong because I remember her being on the short list.
But I mean, I think there was more than one person on the show. Anyway, so but the point is, she got the role, and she, like, walking away from the screen test, she was like, "Oh, I think I got this." And then I'm like, "Okay, so I'm gonna have to do this now." Like, she was like, because she talks a lot about her own anxiety. She's like, "I'm Gen Z. It's hard for me to like stay off the internet and not let it affect me." It's also like, you know, she's got a sense of acceptance about how, like in the headline here, you know, just tuning out toxic fans, or like it's hard to be universally beloved. Like she talks about that, and she also mentions a lot about like, look, I don't live in Hollywood. I'm not from here. I'm not. I wasn't born into like an acting family, so I don't know many actors. So it's like, who do I talk to about like anxieties of like I'm playing this role and I'm in this public spotlight, and you know, obviously she's gotten a lot of like, you know, really wild language thrown at her by people who probably like don't know her, have never met her, and you know, just go off of just the slightest bit of whatever offends them, even though she's not trying to offend them. Like she didn't even like mention men when she was talking about like, you know, sometimes there's toxic. I don't even think she said toxic fans. Remember those comments a few months ago? And she did a really good job of like talking around the subject, and then people were like, oh no, how dare she? And she's like, you know, you struggle with that, the anxiety of that, of the star, of just being in the spotlight, because she was like, it's a privilege that I'm a part of a franchise now, but you know, I didn't come to Hollywood. She was like, I didn't come to Hollywood to be a movie star. I just wanted to be an actor and do movies. And but now she's got this opportunity and she's kind of running with it, but still you struggle with that sometimes because of all the downsides of it. And even when things are going good, it's a lot. So she was mentioning like, you know, how she's been struggling with it, and the interviewer asked her like, so who do you talk to about this? You know, since you don't have a lot of, you know, actor friends, you don't have like your posse or like people, because a lot of actors in Hollywood, if they've been living in LA, they'll, you know, you grow to learn a lot of actors that you are coming up with together. We talked about, what was it, like Robert Pattinson used to room with like a bunch of other actors who they've all now gone on to become big movie stars. But like Mila Jovovich doesn't have that kind of an up, like she didn't come up through that kind of a journey. So the interviewer was like, so who do you talk to? And she's like, well, currently to my therapist, but you know, she can only take you so far, because you know, it's she just can't relate to her experience as like another actress who was in the same position as her, maybe like a Scarlett Johansson, or like, I don't know, Brie Larson or Gal Gadot, like those actresses who have been in similar roles. So I mean, you know, it just, again, it kind of lets you learn a little bit more about the person behind the character, and I think it makes it a little more, to me, relatable that this is, like I was saying before, this is a big deal for her. This is a really, really big career break, and to go from having just done one TV show to having a big blockbuster movie thrown your way. She was like, when she showed up to set the first day, she just like went and found Craig Gillespie and was like, I'm freaking out. I don't know how to do this. Can you like walk me through it? And then Craig Gillespie was like, okay, let's, you know, he kind of like assured her, made her feel safe, and then the established trust from like, you know, day one, and that helped her out a lot. And she even mentioned like when she did the screen test, James Gunn just does a great job of making you feel heard, and like it almost felt like they were just shooting a scene. So you know, it wasn't something where she felt very intimidated by the whole process. And obviously I think she's felt really supported throughout this whole process. And she said like, you know, she's never been at the top of the call sheet. Even on House of the Dragon, it was an ensemble cast, so she wasn't the lead of the show, whereas here clearly, like, when you're in that environment, you also have, you're kind of a de facto leader because you're the lead actor, so you have to set an example while also, you know, doing your thing. And so it's just a lot, you know, to like take on in her first big movie role, and only her second big credit. I know like the show Sirens came out before Supergirl did, but she kind of got both roles not that far apart, and she talked about how the experience on Sirens has also kind of helped her kind of evolve her abilities as an actress. So yeah, it's just, and you know, now like you guys are saying, MTG and in the chat, you see her doing these new podcasts, and you could see like she's opening up more, she's finding her, you know, voice more, which is great to see. And like Enterprising is saying, like, we want her to have success, and you know, I think she deserved a better movie here. Not that this is a bad movie. I think years down the road we'll look back at it and be like, it wasn't that bad. I think we feel like the Grim Reapers this week because we keep talking about the box office, because it is a big metric. But I will kind of like go back for a moment on what I was saying weeks leading into the movie, that it's going to be more important that this movie is remembered by the audiences and by critics as a good movie than a movie that made a lot of money. It's just unfortunate because it does seem like the audience and critics reception is still also really mixed. So, you know, we're trying to find a silver lining here, but I mean, I think the silver lining here might just be that Mila Jovovich, the person, the actress, is a great addition to the Hollywood canon, as it were. So hopefully she'll be able to parlay this into other big opportunities. And then even if she doesn't get a solo movie for a while, I do hope that she gets to be a significant part of the DC moving forward, like Man of Tomorrow and beyond. But yeah, I highly recommend you guys go check out this interview. It's in Variety. It's really, it's a little long, but if you read all the way through it, I think you'll be able to empathize with Millie Alcock's journey up until now. And it's a lot. It's a lot when you're put in a position like that. So yeah, but let's keep going, John.
Yep. But next up, and now we're kind of getting into the more negative stuff. But according to this, DC Studios apparently made a big mistake that could derail the DCU because, of course, why it's always mistakes. But when DC Studios announced Supergirl as part of Gods and Monsters, it was based around Tom King and Bilky Evely's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow as one of the comics that would shape the new DCU. Major inspiration. He set expectations that fans would finally see one of the best DC's best modern stories brought faithfully to the big screen. All right, fucking calm down. Nobody expected a page-for-page adaptation. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people that feels like they expected a page-for-page adaptation.
Well, because they called it Women of Tomorrow for a while. I think people got the wrong idea, maybe.
Yeah, so, comic book movies have always made changes, and sometimes those changes improve the source material. However, when you repeatedly point to a particular story as your blueprint, our first look at Supergirl was literally Millie Alcock reading the graphic novel. Fans naturally expected the heart of the story to survive the transition. Unfortunately, while Supergirl borrows the comic's premise, characters, and broad narrative beats, several of its biggest changes fundamentally weaken what made Woman of Tomorrow so special. Before production began, Gunn repeatedly praised Woman of Tomorrow, encouraging fans to read it while describing it as the basis for Zor-El's cinematic debut. Subtitle was dropped, and the finished film often feels like a much more conventional superhero adventure. Supergirl and Woman of Tomorrow have little in common, but beyond the story and the baffling decision to have the Maid of Might embrace revenge, which goes against the comic's core message. Not really, because literally the comic ends with them killing Krem, but that's beside the point. The murky color palette is similarly a problematic issue. In the comic, Evely's breathtaking artwork embraces sweeping alien landscapes, cosmic wonder, and dreamlike worlds that make every planet feel distinct. It's simultaneously beautiful and melancholic, creating a fantasy western atmosphere unlike almost anything else DC has published. So, with all of this, the blame for that may lie with filmmaker Craig Gillespie, who recently told Rolling Stone, "The interesting thing is I didn't go back and look at anything of Supergirl before the meeting. I just read Anna's script, and I put together this 120-page visual deck of what I wanted the world to be just off the script. I didn't even look at the Tom King comic."
Oh.
Yeah, we can tell. I just wanted to do something that I was excited about. It was very gritty and dark, and you could feel the dirt and the grime, and just being on the fringe of this alien world with the poverty and the crime. I went down this rabbit hole of what the visual idea was to me. And then also literally the first thing in the meeting was, I don't want her to put on the superhero outfit for as long as possible until she's emotionally ready to take that on. And they signed off on all of it. So I don't hate the last part where
I'm okay with that part.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. 'Cause that means I'm ready, which again, does kind of go against the ending for Superman, but maybe she was just maybe her fucking clothes disintegrated and she's like, this is all I have, I need to get back home. Or maybe she was on a world with something and it I don't know, just a reasoning of maybe there was a probable reason as to why she had that outfit, So
yeah, but I think
it's not totally against the idea that she would wear it beforehand.
I do feel, because remember James Gunn, well, not James Gunn, but in an earlier piece that we talked about before the movie came out, Craig Gillespie had been saying that when he talked to James Gunn about it, James Gunn was like, Woman of Tomorrow is a graphic novel. This movie is your graphic novel. So you do your thing. But I do think somewhere along the way, based on how they were approaching things, maybe the fan expectation disconnect does matter a little bit, in the sense that they marketed it, clearly with that first preview being of reading the comic that this was based on, and the movie being called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow until it wasn't. Even when it was, especially when it was announced, all the way till a few months ago when they made that change. And then now hearing that Craig Gillespie didn't even read the comic book, and just kind of wanted his own vision based on the script, which we talked about earlier, that when you write a script, it's a blueprint. And like 5 people can read the same script and imagine a completely different movie.
Yeah.
Because we all will like fill in the details and the gaps in our minds. So that's what I was talking about with Peter, well, not Peter, but like with Craig Gillespie reading Ana Nogueira's script. The script could have, painted a very different movie in James Gunn's mind versus Craig Gillespie's mind. So, and then I feel like the biggest thing Craig Gillespie maybe shouldn't have said out loud is like, I didn't read the comic. I just wanted to do my own thing. And then he talks about like the dark gritty and everything. And I'm like, but dude, you can have dark gritty, but you can also have colorful and space epic at the same time.
Yeah.
And James Gunn has proven that with the Guardians movies. Like the third one, like thematically was a really dark movie, but also was a very colorful movie. So you can do both. And I think like, yeah, maybe Craig Gillespie in hindsight could have done better, or maybe he wasn't the best.
I just don't
fit for
think he was
this,
the right fit, considering his only blockbuster experience was Cruella, and that was not a very well received movie. And I just think he was I mean, I kind of said this from the beginning. I'm like, benefit of the doubt, like maybe he'll do a good job, but I was always kind of like iffy on the fact that Craig Gillespie is doing this movie. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's done a lot of great indie work. I mean, I, Tonya, Lars and the Real Girl are both, like, from what I've heard, amazing movies. But it just feels like having your first foray into, like, this major blockbuster world at the birth of this thing that is on very shaky foundation was not the right fit. They should have gotten... like, say what you will, it was kind of like what they were trying to do with Solo. I know, bad example, but it's the only one that comes to mind right now. How they got Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are very experimental filmmakers, but Kathleen Kennedy grew cool. It's like, okay, we can't have these experimental filmmakers coming in and, like, wasting this amount of time going over budget and all this other stuff. So she brought in a trustworthy veteran director with Ron Howard. Now, obviously, that didn't turn out as well. But with that, it is the idea. Sometimes you got to bring in like these veteran guys who know blockbusters. Now, I'm not saying you need, okay, get James Cameron on this shit. No, obviously not. But George Miller is a good choice. He has blockbuster experience. He's worked with WB, but he's not exactly an expensive name like James Cameron, who could have made this work, especially when everybody and their mother was saying that this was like Mad Max Fury Road. So you should have just gotten the guy who fucking did that in the first place, instead of the guy who's like, oh, this guy did a really good pitch, instead of seeing the breadth of his work and being like, you know what, you have a really good pitch. Because sometimes a pitch doesn't automatically guarantee a great movie, and this was the case. It was a good movie, but it wasn't a great movie. So, I just think I think that from what we got, even as someone who liked the movie, he was the wrong choice. I don't think Ana Nogueira was the right choice. I think James Gunn is a little bit blinded by his own like
Craig
love
is a seasoned director
of these certain things where you gotta but it also does fall on Peter Safran quite a bit, because remember, James Gunn said, I don't want to be the only executive because I'm not an executive guy. Well, clearly from these decisions that you're making as an executive, even though from a more creative standpoint than a business standpoint, you clearly made some decisions that were not good, and it shows that you're not executive quality. With that, that's when Peter Safran really needs to come in and be like, James, I think we need to do this, that, and the other thing. Now, it's entirely possible that Peter Safran also said, hey, this is great, fucking do it. But at the same time, like, I feel like you need... I'm getting George Lucas in the 90s developing Phantom Menace flashbacks with this. Nobody can tell these guys no. And that's kind of... James Gunn claims, he's like, I don't surround myself with yes men. Yet you greenlit this movie against like prior judgment of all this guy who was not fit for this, a first-time screenwriter. Everyone said it was okay, and it produced a movie that a lot of people are not happy with. So, it just feels like kind of weird and awkward to me that it's just like, you're doing all this stuff, and then it just kind of...
Well, I will say this as far as Craig Gillespie and the choice as a director. Like he did Cruella, which I think was a big blockbuster. But like when we talk about big tentpole blockbusters, especially Supergirl, you're talking about a movie that is action heavy. This movie, I think the majority of its runtime gets taken up by all the big action set pieces. Like I mentioned, this movie is edited within the inch of his life. There's a few things like this shot. I know it's a production still, so it doesn't mean there's gonna be. But like remember, this is one of the tanks. But they go through this sequence so quickly that sometimes I was like missing like how it felt like watching a scene from Taken, where like the camera is moving so quickly, they're cutting around so quickly that you sometimes miss who did she shoot out? What about that guy? And then like and then like the guy's still flying the tank or like whatever. And then like even stuff like what we got in the trailer, like this here. Remember in the movie when like Zor-El sends her away? You don't even get to see the entirety of the sequence like you do in the trailer where you get to see her all the way exit the dome. It's like we got to see extended looks at scenes that got clearly cut down, like a few snips here, a few snips there, and it's like one or two of those is not going to matter so much. But I keep saying overall, ultimately it just felt like this movie just wanted to like get from A to B as fast as it could. And I don't know how much of that pacing, the editing decisions fall on Craig Gillespie, how much of that falls on like studio notes, which would be like Peter Safran, James Gunn stuff. We will talk about like more of what James Gunn and Peter Safran wanted from this movie, like both in the screenwriting and then also in post-production in a minute, John. But yeah, Craig Gillespie, maybe like my big concern has been that like, well, Olivia, hello, we all pretty much agree that Millie did a great job as Supergirl and as Kara Zor-El. Like she's a great actress. They did a good job of casting her for the role. But you can always tell when a director is not very well versed in good action, like, you know, filming good fight choreography on screen, how to portray good action cinema. Like you mentioned this earlier, John, in the week. Like Zack Snyder and Michael Bay may not do character stuff really well, and hello to Smacky, but they know how to shoot the shit out of a good action scene. And they can make that stuff look sexy as hell, even if the rest of the movie is on, you know, very shaky ground in terms of the storytelling, like the character work and all that stuff. But you can tell they have a distinctive style, but also they will always give you visually pleasing, like, you know, sequences. This movie, if you go back and watch it a second time, you will notice in pretty much every action sequence, there's a lot of moments where you get some good shots for scale because this, you know, there's the camera team, the director of photography, the art director, they will have a say in that too. And I'm sure Craig Gillespie had a few really good ideas, but there's a lot of moments, like Liz kept pointing out to that moment where Ruthie's in the middle and Supergirl's just fighting in the background in this one sequence. You could tell when the director doesn't have like a very distinct set of ideas and hasn't done this before, certainly not at the scale. So like James Gunn is a very visual director. He like just the comparison between that scene with Ruthie and Supergirl in the third act and the scene with Mr. Terrific taking out all the Lex bots or whatever on the beach in Metropolis with Lois Lane and the Energy Shield dome. They're both very similar, but there's a big difference between how they're both shot and the kind of information they both choose to show and the information that they don't show, because there's a clear difference between James Gunn knows how to do this, has done it before, and has a really distinct idea, a set of ideas. Craig Gillespie, I feel like, doesn't. I think that was an area where this was lacking. And well, I mean, it's not just slow down for maximum effect, but like, you know what I mean. Troy the Great saying, what do you think about Supergirl? We both gave it a 7.5 out of 10. We've been talking about it for a while. But yeah, I just think like Craig Gillespie in hindsight maybe was not the best choice for the director because of all those reasons I just pointed out. Like, I think the character work he got right. This is why I'm still impressed to this day that Mark Webb doing the Amazing Spider-Man movies, like those movies, the action sequences look fantastic. And Mark Webb hadn't really done anything like that before. Even John Watts, like for some reason, whenever they hire a director who comes from an indie background to do Spider-Man movies, they still turn out like some, you know, good looking shit. Even, well, actually, you know, the second Spider-Man with Tom Holland was not good looking shit, but
it was just shit.
It was just shit. But like with this particular instance, it just seemed, yeah, they just needed maybe somebody else who was more like
just because I feel like there are certain things in the comic you couldn't do for a movie, and it just like I feel like it would have, because again, I wish I could just fucking just go all in on the comic book, but we don't fucking have time. It's just, were so many stupid decisions. Like, the amount of monologue, you sly dog, you caught me monologue. Like, the amount of monologuing from Ruthie gave me a headache. Like, it was like every single panel had about like 3 or 4 boxes of Ruthie's narration, and I wanted to put a fucking gun in my mouth. It was like, I don't mind monologuing, I don't mind narration, but it was like, she wasn't even saying anything interesting, and it was just like, Tom, let the fucking visuals speak for themselves. You're not writing a book, you are writing a comic book, which is partly a visual medium. Let the visuals, which are pretty much the best thing about the comic anyway, speak for themselves. By having you go on and on and on and on, it's just tiring. And like after like the second issue, I just skimmed. I just was like, I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, okay, cool, great, awesome, moving on. And then finally, when we had characters that would actually speak, dialogue scenes, I'm like, okay, I'm like kind of sort of invested, but like the fucking onslaught of narration was fucking tiring. You can't really do that in the movie. And then on top of the fact, Supergirl, even though it's called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, Supergirl was a side character in the book that is named after her. This should have been Ruthie, Woman of Tomorrow, because Ruthie is the main character of this fucking story. And the thing is, for a Supergirl movie, I want Supergirl to be the main character. It's like if Logan was not the main character of that movie and it was X-23. That wouldn't have made sense because it's not an X-23 movie. It is a Logan movie. And I don't think that, yes, would it have been experimental? Sure, but it would have been like all the people complaining like, oh, why is Lobo in this for 5 minutes? Well, it's not a fucking Lobo movie. It's a Supergirl movie. So I want Supergirl to be the main character of that story. And then the ending was fucking, I don't care what anybody says, that ending was fucking stupid. It was the whole thing of like, revenge is bad, don't do revenge, which I do fucking hate because Last of Us Part 2 pretty much ruined that messaging for everybody on planet Earth, because now every time that someone does that, we're just going to go back to the terrible writing of Neil Cuckman, so fuck that shit. But it's just, they set this up like, oh, like there was like this big twist, Crypto wasn't actually poisoned, and Supergirl did all of this to teach Ruthie that revenge is bad and don't do it and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, cool. So what do? They send him to the Phantom Zone, where he literally spends 300 years as a prisoner to repent for his crimes, and then when Ruthie is an old woman, Supergirl comes back, releases Krem from the Phantom Zone, who is, by the way, groveling at his knees, begging for forgiveness for what he did in his mind 300 years ago, and Ruthie kills him anyway. That's literally Tom King wanting his cake and eating it too, where you fucking spend the entire twist of this story like revenge is bad, and then you fulfill the revenge anyway. What was the fucking point? Why would you do that? Like, literally, that entire fucking ending shit the bed of an otherwise mediocre, kind of boring comic into a horrible one, because it fucking makes no sense with your messaging. Now, I know some people would say, oh, the Supergirl messaging also doesn't make sense, because she says, hey, revenge is bad to Ruthie, and then kills him anyway. But the fact that you kind of set up Krem as a human trafficker and possibly a pedophile, that you kind of had to kill him, because if you didn't, then Supergirl, then people would have been like, oh, it's kind of like how the Batman argument, why doesn't Batman kill the Joker? You would have had that the same, so you fucking had Supergirl kill him, which I don't think is as bad, because she has that sort of trauma, and she could, like, hold on to that. Not saying that that's an excuse to, like, fucking murder people, but it's just, like, she could handle it mentally, but soon realizes within herself, like, you know what, I shouldn't be a loner, because I might continue to do these things, so let me go back to Earth. I'll be with Superman, who is this good-natured person, and live out as a true hero instead of being around the universe getting drunk. So it works. That, I feel, it's still not great, but it works a fucking hell of a lot better than the comic, which was just, Tom King's shitty writing because he's a shitty fucking writer. So that's just what I think. Anyway, side tangent, but I need to get that off my chest because I'm so sick of all these articles being like, oh, the messaging of the comic was so good. No, it was shitty fucking writing that you're excusing because the art was pretty. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but whatever.
Okay.
I'm done.
Cool. I should have played the intro for that. At any rate, though. I just kicked my cat. All right. I think we have one more thing to get through.
We have a couple more things to get through.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Supergirl.
We
writer,
didn't get the
director,
free
credit.
comic, by the way. We didn't get the free comic.
My friend got a free comic, and he's like, "Did you get
I didn't
this
get
shit?"
it.
I'm like, "No, I didn't get the shit. Feel free to throw it out, dude."
I think
because
it's only like it's a specific version. If you got to go to a specific format. By the way, hello, Moser player. Yeah, this movie's not gonna get anywhere close to 500 million, unfortunately. But yeah, John also based. always based. There you go. Yeah, John's always based. Of course he is. Anyway, John. Yeah, let's.
Anyway,
let's
so
get into it.
With this, apparently, in an ideal world, Supergirl would have received the same response as Superman, been a modest box office hit at the very least, and continued DC Studios' momentum. Instead, it's been a rough week for the movie, with so-so reviews and what's looking like a lower than expected opening weekend. While some are already calling the DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn's head, others are a little more level-headed and want to see how things go with Lanterns, Clayface, and Man of Tomorrow first. However, for anyone looking to point fingers for Supergirl's failings, it seems James Gunn is responsible for two particularly divisive elements: Lobo's extended cameo and a final battle song choice recently described as cringy. Many reviews were critical of Jason Momoa's Lobo being shoehorned into Supergirl, though we'd be remiss not to mention that some of have praised the former Aquaman actor as a highlight. Lobo wasn't in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic book, even though Tom King did say he wanted to put Lobo in the comic book, as it says right here, but they couldn't use him for editorial reasons. So I think that was like them being like, okay, cool, we'll put him in the movie. And it was a DC Studios decision, according to Ann Nogueira. That was also given to me. That was like my assignment. We want Lobo in the movie, she told Rolling Stone. So those were like the kind of little toys I was given. And I knew that Woman of Tomorrow was based on True Grit. And so I actually went back to the source and went back to True Grit. That's when I was like, oh, that's how Lobo fits in, because there's Matt Damon's character and he has the third entry point, the third character, the love to hate to love kind of guy. And then that's how I was styling it, just as a Western, because I knew that's what inspired Woman of Tomorrow author Tom King. Nogueira started working on Supergirl before Superman landed in theaters, and Gunn's DCU plans understandably led to some changes. There were two major changes, which were notes from James. One, that Superman isn't known in the galaxy. In my first draft, she would go places and people would recognize Superman. This Superman is new. He's not out there saving worlds and planets, so he's not out there. This is her domain. And then the other note was a change from the comic that Kara is there when Krypton is destroyed, versus her being born on the post-destruction planet Fragment Argo, because the note was that, and I understand this, the Phantom Zone, all that takes over, it ends up taking over a screenplay. She got stuck where, what occurred. Director Craig Gillespie, meanwhile, revealed who chose one of Supergirl's most divisive needle drops, Jimmy Eat World's The Middle, with female vocals by Kelty Gray and Kid Motel. That plays over the final battle and has been widely ridiculed on social media after leaked clips first circulated earlier this week. The filmmaker confirmed that Gunn picked the song, adding that there were probably about 45 songs that went against the scene, revealing that another cover was considered. The filmmaker pointed out that was down to the wire getting that sequence finished, because obviously the visual effects are massive, so it was a long few months of being like, it's going to be great. Back to Nogueira, and while she wouldn't be drawn on sharing Teen Titans or Wonder Woman details, she did make it clear she's not interested in getting involved with what the interviewer described as culture war type hatred aimed at Supergirl. Oh God, I try to ignore any culture war aspect, and I do believe all these people love these characters a lot, and they mean a lot to them, and have for years, decades maybe. I just wanted to be like, I think this one's for everyone. We're just going to tell a good story, and it's not going to be an us versus them kind of situation. It happened to be that way. I want everyone to like it from the whole spread of the DC fan base. We made it all for all of them, and I hope they're all into it. But clearly, they are not. So, yeah. I mean, I can see, like, it is funny how, like, again, James Gunn said, this is your movie, do whatever you want, yet you're putting in notes like a certain other baseball cap wearing superhero comic book executive, James. So it's like, oh yeah, here's your movie. Also, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's like,
Yeah, no, well, but to a
Okay.
certain degree, like I understand because he's the studio exec. Like that's just part of how that works. Like I'm not as worried about that. I think more what I was concerned about was, well, actually, like in general, again, this is more about Ana Nogueira being told like, hey, you're gonna need to put Lobo in this movie. And I thought Lobo being in this movie did really, really well. Lobo is one of the highlights, right? So I think a lot of us agree with that. And James Gunn putting in a few notes. I mean, it also makes sense to like not have the Superman canon be, well, because like Superman hasn't left Earth in this continuity yet. So not basically having that be the case, that just makes sense, like continuity wise. Also, I don't know, was this the article? Because you just kind of like skimmed through the whole thing because I couldn't really follow what you were saying. But was this the article where Ana Nogueira was talking about where that her own experience with writing Supergirl? She had basically apparently written 2 other versions of Supergirl before, and both of them had gone denied. And she said like they were for a different purpose. So I'm
Yeah, they
guessing
were
that
for
was either
the
for the DCEU
with Sasha
or
Calle.
something standalone. And so then she went on maternity leave, and then when she came back from maternity leave, her producer was like, I want you to pitch Supergirl again. They actually want to make a movie this time. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do it because, well, they're not going to make it. I clearly, like, I'm tapped out. My ideas are not relevant.
I don't think that was mentioned in any of the articles we talked about, but
like I remember I was reading,
but I remember seeing that like on my feed earlier today.
So yeah, it was just like Ana Nogueira wasn't really. She said no to the idea of pitching it, and then they were like, "No, do it." And then she was convinced to pitch it, and then when what she pitched, James Gunn, Peter Safran loved that idea. So again, I mean, Ana Nogueira has spent clearly a lot of time at the studio level at Warner Brothers, working on this, this particular character and stories related to Supergirl. So again, I think that's another point in favor of. I don't think Ana Nogueira's script was ultimately the reason why this movie's not successful. I just think like maybe because you got to remember the one person that has the single most outsized influence on any movie is the director. Even James Gunn's notes, seemingly from what we have just read and heard about from Craig Gillespie himself and Ana Nogueira about like what James Gunn said. If you say do the Woman of Tomorrow but to have Lobo in it, I'm like, that's a plus. And I feel like Lobo was a great decision. And I don't understand if some people are like they log jammed him into the movie. I thought it worked really well, and he helped to kind of like
it's
keep
because
things moving along.
the thing for me, like it's world building. Like they're building up because I would be willing to fucking bet you that if it was just a no-name character, nobody would be complaining. They're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. This no-name character, this bounty hunter, he needed somebody's head. Okay, cool. But the fact it is a known character, they're like, oh, he's pointless because he didn't fucking do all the things. It's just like, oh, it just so happened Lobo came in, he's getting a bounty hunt, leading to some things that happen later on in the movie, and boom, there we go. I don't think he was pointless. I mean, I literally said before that if it wasn't for him, Kara wouldn't have got to the world where Krem was in the final act of the movie.
Right.
So, here's the thing. I do blame that a little bit on the marketing because I feel like they kind of realized that you couldn't really sell Millie Alcock because she's not a no name. But you can sell the guy who previously played Aquaman and has also been in like Fast X and all these other fucking movies. Okay, cool. You could sell him, and then you could also sell the guy who's got DC $600 odd million last year. So you could sell those 2 guys, and it's just like, oh, why were they in the movies? Well, it's like you have to sell them because you can't sell the main actress because she's not fucking well known. The only thing she's been in were 2 TV shows that fucking some people watched, but not everybody watched. So. Yeah.
No, I agree.
No. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other people. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other people. No, what you said is like he didn't gel with the rest of it. I can kind of see that, but I'm talking because my friend said he was pointless. Oh, because they're like, oh yeah, he was totally pointless. blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. Fucking Indiana Jones was pointless in Raiders of the Lost Ark, yet people fucking suck that movie's dick. So shut up. Anyway, goddamn,
Cool.
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. No, we did not get
No.
the comic in the theater.
No, I
yeah,
think that
we were
was just for
asked
like
about that.
previews or opening day.
Yeah. Or maybe it was
Yeah,
like
no,
an
I
IMAX
could see that. I
specific.
still think
Yeah.
he could have been integrated a little bit better. But like
Yeah.
to say he was pointless is just wrong. Like
No.
literally, he leads the main
Yeah.
character to the final showdown. Like that was
Literally.
part of his purpose.
I loved his interaction with Ruthie in the third act. I thought that was great stuff. Yeah, I think again, this movie, I think a lot of the flaws for it. I personally say that I think a lot of the blame goes to maybe Craig Gillespie more so than I think James Gunn had influence on this. Obviously, James Gunn has to take the responsibility because he's like the guy in charge. But
Right.
yeah, and no worries, Jalen. Hello to you. And we got Fancast Friday coming up after, so don't worry, you can join us on there too. But look, I'm
But
excited to see.
we still have one more.
No,
thing.
we do. But like,
Yeah.
I'm excited to see Supergirl continue in this universe,
Yeah.
and I like the interaction
Especially
and
in
the
Man of
vibe that
Tomorrow.
we have. Like, there's a big brother, little sister thing going, almost like the chemistry between her and Superman, and I would love to see how that develops further.
I will say I
So, yeah.
like the original idea more. The fact that Supergirl was on Krypton
Saw
when
the
it
movie,
exploded,
okay.
and
Yeah.
then she was already old. I think that would have been a bit better, and it would have definitely framed the continuity a lot better. Since now the
Mhm.
continuity is kind of messed up because of that. But even then, I still I don't mind it. It's just
We
like I
can't
like the
fix
idea that
everything in post.
Supergirl was technically the older cousin, and then she got kind of
Right.
usurped because Superman got there first. She was in the
Yeah.
Phantom Zone. She was revolving around the sun. It changes in every continuity. So
And that wasn't that was a James Gunn thing that they meant, because Anna Nogueira talked about how James Gunn was like, let's just set it so that she's born on Argo City, so that
Yeah.
way, which is a spoiler, sorry, but it kind of, because like Anna Nogueira was like, it kind of then, if you do it the way it is done in the comics, then it kind of forces you to be like, oh, but then everything about how Krypton died and the Phantom Zone, and then you have to explain the Phantom Zone, and it can really start to like dominate the narrative. So I understand that decision. I just don't. The math doesn't check out. With
now
she was
you have a
15.
fucked up continuity instead of spending a little more money on the Phantom Zone. So
Well, I mean,
you could
but you know
also,
what? I'm
like-
sure they can explain it away. I'm sure they'll figure
But
out.
here's
a
the
way to
thing,
do
like
that.
I feel like you don't have to have her go into the Phantom Zone because
Right.
you could have, like, again, what the New 52 did. This is literally comic book continuity. I understand. Nobody likes the New 52. I get it. It
Yeah.
sucks. But like sometimes you got to make shit work for a movie that works if you don't want to introduce certain things. And with that, in the New 52, from what I remember now, if somebody knows a little bit better than I do, I fucking like grazed this issue. So like whatever. But essentially what happened is that Supergirl, although she did get shipped after Superman,
Mhm.
but I think she was, I still think she was the older cousin. But she got sent off Krypton, but the thing is, the reason she didn't get sent to Earth like until after like Superman was, a man and Superman, was because she was revolving around the sun in like its gravitational pull, and they made her a stronger character because it was essentially supercharging her cells with yellow sun radiation. So not only was she the remnant of a dead world and she knew that world, unlike Superman,
Mhm.
she is now like has all this power and doesn't know like how to control it, which eventually led to her becoming a Red Lantern. So there was that as well. So I think that could have been good. Like just have her like be like,
Mhm.
oh, they both got sent off at the same time. She was revolving around the sun, supercharging her cells. She then technically becomes a stronger character, and she has this power eventually, do that. Like, I understand, like, not a lot of people like that decision, but if you want to introduce the idea of, like, this character exists, but you don't want to do the Phantom Zone shit that was done in the comics and the TV show, then
Right.
do that. Like, some things you got to sacrifice to make it work better, because now your continuity is kind of screwed up when you think about it, and it's just like, oh, that's not good. So, that's how
Yeah,
it is for me.
well, I think it's maybe they just didn't want to go through the explanation part, which I'm not I'm a little more indifferent on that part. What I was gonna say, John, what did you think about like? By the way, hello, Sean Christopher. We haven't seen you in a while in the chat. Welcome on in. She was born in the Remnant several years
Yeah,
after.
no, I know, but I'm just
that's what we
saying
were talking
comic
about.
book wise.
In the comics, it's different.
Yeah,
Right.
it's different.
Well, look, here's the thing, Jalen, and I think Enterprising too, because you guys are like feeling like up and down. Just because Supergirl doesn't do well at the box office, or it's looking like it won't, doesn't mean the DCU is dead. Man of Tomorrow will be its own thing. It's a year away. It will be fine. I wouldn't just, if you look, I'm not trying to talk down to you, but literally get out, like after the show is done, or maybe in the morning, if it's night for you right now, wake up, smell the roses, have some fresh coffee. It's a movie. We'll be fine. It's gonna be fine. There's another DC movie coming in a few months. There's a show coming out weeks from now. We'll be fine. Like Jalen said, 8 out of 10. My friends who watched the movie loved it too. Exactly. And that's all you gotta, like, if you love the movie, you love the movie. Go see it another time. Like that's all that really matters at the end of the day. I feel like we have been pretty negative because we're talking about, like, we're trying to dissect maybe why it's not doing as well as it should have, and there are imperfections. But with
especially Nightfall. Remember, Nightfall is the biggest thing.
Like the biggest difference, but the biggest difference between the DCEU and the DCU has to be the idea that they can't be reactive. They can't like freak out because BVS didn't get good reviews and fire Zack Snyder or force him off of Justice League. I'm not saying the same thing will happen here, but what I'm saying is the same thing shouldn't happen here. They need to stick with the plan. Like, not everything is going to be a hit. There were early days MCU movies that were like, not the most successful things, but you keep on going. You got to be a little bit like a goldfish sometimes. Like, okay, you take it on the chin and you keep pushing forward. So on that level, I think it'll be okay. I did want to ask you, John, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier. James Gunn did say, or not James Gunn, I think Ana Nogueira said that, or was it Craig Gillespie, talked about how, that needle drop towards the end of the movie with Lolo that felt inappropriate. Apparently they couldn't figure out what song, and they went through like dozens of them, and then James Gunn made like an executive decision.
Fucking song. Just use the score of the composer you changed 3 times. How about that?
I thought that was an interesting thing. Well, you're welcome, Jalen. But like, I thought that was an interesting thing where, I mean, look, you could say James Gunn walked in and made an executive decision and that's his job. But like you said, John, maybe they should have gone in a different direction. It doesn't mean it was the best decision. So, but yeah.
Anyway, Man of Tomorrow, the future of Millie Alcock's Supergirl, because she has confirmed Spoiler will appear. Who is Spoiler? It's Gary the robot. He's coming back, guys.
I think she was on one of the podcasts, and she was asked about
Josh Horowitz. We touched on this before when,
Apparently she's been filming with Nicholas Hoult. She loves Nicholas Hoult. She loves working with David Cornsweet. So, and then Alan Tudyk, of course, he's so funny. Story.
And Lars Eidinger, we've had a few. That's interesting. She has filmed with Lars Eidinger, which.
Alan Tudyk.
That's interesting. The peak of fiction.
I wonder how this is all going to work. Yeah.
When Horowitz put it to her that James Gunn has said Supergirl will have a big role in the sequel, she said, "Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to keep doing it. I'm not going to tell you things." Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to tell you something, but I'm not giving it away. You're not going to catch me like that.
Catch me outside. How about that? Anyway.
Yeah. I don't think she said that either, but. Nope. Anyway, so yeah. Well, look, ultimately, we know she's a big part of the cinematic universe, and from Peacemaker to Superman to, Supergirl, and then Man of Tomorrow. And they even said, Peter Safran said she's going to be in the movie after Man of Tomorrow as well, which we don't even know what that is, but maybe James Gunn's already writing it while he's filming Man of Tomorrow. That guy burns the candle on all ends. So anyway. I think we'll be okay, and we'll keep talking about Supergirl. Of course, we'll see what it does at the box office on Monday and how the weekend goes. It is looking, dark, but if you enjoy the movie, go support it. Go see it a few more times. That might, help improve the box office prospects. So, the origin of Supergirl. Are you referring to a specific comic or the movie? I don't know, Olivia, if you're talking about like the movie or and in the animated universe. Yeah. It's okay, but like I mean, that's kind of not relevant to the conversation now. But I thought it was okay. MTG saying, going back to the question you guys brought up on Wednesday with Liz, some kind of Brainiac post-credit scene would have lifted the movie. Yeah, but again, that's just not what James Gunn. It's a philosophical thing where James Gunn just does not want to do that because he doesn't want to pigeonhole himself into anything, which is fine. It's just completely fine. On the other hand, Russo Brothers are doing exactly that. So we can have the best of both worlds. You're just not gonna get it with everything, so it's okay. But John, you know what we will get is the Jessica Cruz fan casting, because that's what you guys voted for, and that's coming up next. So make sure to tune into that. Give us a few minutes. We'll change up the setup, and then we'll see you back for that. You guys voted for it. It's Fancast Friday. We'll have a Tier List Tuesday poll up for you guys. I'll put up the Mount Rushmore Monday poll tomorrow on the channel. So you guys are going to have 2 polls to vote on over the weekend. So it's going to be fun. We'll see you guys there. I'm sure John has some really good picks for Jessica Cruz. So until then, if you guys don't join us for that, we'll see you on Monday for another episode of DCU Daily. Go watch Supergirl again.
Yes. Do it.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chorus.
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you really I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka hunka!
Fuck David Ellison, Jeff Snyder, and especially